Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of NYPA and the Canals Corporation. Pleased to be with you again. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
On a gray and gloomy day, but holiday cheer nonetheless. With me today, as always, fellow members Dennis Trainor, Laurie Wheelock, Michael Cusick, Lewis Warren, Cecily Gonzalez, Cecily Morris, and B. Gonzalez.
One power.
Yeah, we get them blended. Apologies to the Gonzalez's and the Morrises.
We're good.
But all present. Justin's with us. His staff and team will join a little bit later in the meeting. This meeting has been scheduled and duly noticed as required by open meetings law, and hence pleased to now call us to order. Start with Justin's term in the spirit of the football season, a little bit of audible on the agenda. In light of all that's going on, now asking that we start as we typically do with an exec session. I was hoping we could avoid, but really do need to include an exec session. Also need to move a couple things around on the agenda based on availability and ensure the sequencing and the flow, in particular relative to some of our external reports and presentations that prefer to have at the end of the meeting. So we'll juggle some things around, but the substantive change is to include an exec session right out of the gate here. So if I could, I'd ask for a motion to adopt that amended agenda.
Come on.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And while we have a very full and robust agenda for the day, a public session, kicking off with Justin and his report and feedback. We've all attended and had some terrific hearings across the state over the last several weeks and gathered a lot of input. And we'll talk about our renewable strategy and further that dialogue in addition to our customary reports. As I just said, do want to start with a brief exec session. Make sure it lasts no more than half an hour. We'll move quicker if we all can. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to approve an exec session in accordance with Section 105 of the Public Officers Law.
I move that the board conduct an executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation pursuant to Public Law 1005F of the Public Officers Law.
Have a second? Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. And with that, we will adjourn to exec session and be back in what I promise will be no more than half an hour. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. If I could, I'd ask for a motion to resume the meeting in open session.
So moved.
Thank you, Dennis. Second.
Second.
Laurie, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We're back at it. As said, a full and important agenda today. It's always Justin will kick us off, and his time will be expanded. He and Charles are going to have an egg discussion on the recently completed group of hearings across the state. Joe and Adam will give us their typical updates as well. Alexis, we've got a couple external presentations that will close our meeting. We've got 3 committee reports as we've all been active and involved over the last couple of weeks and again this morning. So I look forward to a great discussion and full engagement by everyone. So Justin, the podium and the floor is yours to kick us off.
Thank you, Chairman.
A little bit of look back and reflection on the year. Hard to believe we find ourselves in the middle of December already. So
I know. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Morning, trustees, NYPA colleagues, members of the public. Great to be here with you at our last board meeting of 2024. It's a time for us to, as you said, look back over some of the progress we made during the year, and also there'll be a little bit about the look ahead to 2025. So with that, just kick it off with some slides on some accomplishments during the course of the year. You've heard me talk before about the JFK solar project. This is a project we're really proud of. 12 megawatts of solar and storage on the long-term parking lot canopies. It's the largest parking canopy solar project in New York. And the nice thing about it is half of the generation goes to the local community. So six goes to power the air train, and six goes to the local community. So super excited about that. The project in the middle, of course, a lot going on the transmission side of the house. We've talked a lot about HTP, Hudson Transmission, over the years. We have an RFP that we've issued for ideas around how we could potentially make better use of that underground cable from New Jersey, from the PJM area into Manhattan. And we're hopeful that we might be able to identify renewable projects that we could utilize that line for to help decarbonize New York City. So it's an underutilized asset that, as we all know,
That's polite.
that's been on our books, and we sure would love to put it to better use, particularly if we could use it to move renewables into New York.
That'd be really good news.
Yeah. And finally, on this slide, you all know about the work we do in communities. We're very focused on trying to be good neighbors in the communities in which we operate, and that's now expanded to broader communities than just around our plants. But we've funded 36 hydroponic classrooms to enhance environmental science and sustainability across New York City. So next slide. On I guess what I would call the infrastructure side of the house, some big infrastructure work in 2024. A lot of progress, I should say, on Smart Path Connect. You'll recall Smart Path Connect is the project up in the North Country where we're working in partnership with National Grid to unbottle renewable generation in the North Country, make sure we can get that on the system and get it where it could be utilized most effectively. So tremendous progress there, like I said, in partnership with National Grid. 95% of foundation work done, 85% of the structures, and 80% of the high voltage transmission lines or conductors are in place. So great progress there. We've also talked a lot about Next Gen Niagara. That's our $1 billion plus project to refurbish the Niagara Power Project, our largest hydropower facility and the third largest hydropower plant in the US, close to 2,700 megawatts. So we're always looking to make sure that that's in good state of repair, and hopefully with some of these improvements even kind of eke out a little bit more generation out of the facility. And so I've done a lot of work. A lot of work is underway, and some of the crane work, as you can see there, we've achieved some great progress there. And then again, infrastructure-wise, at the canal system, where we're doing a lot of work, we completed the Montezuma Wetlands project, 180 acres to support waterfowl and wildlife habitats. So proud of those three projects. They're three of many, but three great projects on what I would call the infrastructure side of the house. You all know about our workforce development work that we've come to you regularly with. We'll have a presentation later on today from one of the recipients, Renaissance Technology Institute, that we talked about, I believe, at our last board meeting. Their leader will be here today, but this is the $25 million sort of addition to the legislation that NYPA provided last year to support the workforce of the future. And so we've got $20.6 million of the $25 million out the door. And we think that's great progress in year one with some great recipients around the state. We're also, as you know, it's very much in our DNA, our DEI efforts. We had a great event here where we hosted the first deafblind graduate of Harvard Law School, and she gave a speech and we communicated. As you can see there, Rebecca Hughes from the Canal Corporation is communicating with her through a keyboard, which sends a signal to her Braille device in front of her so that she can feel the words being typed on the keyboard across from her, and she can have a real-time conversation. It was fascinating and very inspiring. And then again, on the accessibility front, at the Canal Corporation this year, we launched an accessibility program to be able to provide more access to the canal system to folks that should have every right to utilize it like everyone else does. So a lot of work being done there, and we're proud of that work as well. Next slide.
Talk a little more on the DEI. Give me your views, Justin. A lot's being written lately. A lot of corporations pulling back, stepping back. What's your view, our view, relative to continuing to lean in and advance our DEI initiatives when many are using the current environment, or I won't editorialize, but many are stepping back. Talk a little bit about where you see us positioning ourselves there.
So this has been very much a focus of our strategy refresh, the Vision 2030 renewed that we're going to be coming to you with, and so we did talk a lot about that, and our conclusion is that that this is who we are, and there's going to be no pulling back. In fact, we're looking to accelerate, and I think I've quoted the board often in your direction to go big in this area. And so the continued direction to staff is to try to continue to enhance programs, provide for more inclusivity. Our theme is sort of everybody participates, everybody belongs, everybody contributes, everybody belongs, and we're very much committed to that. So while we see the articles in the Wall Street Journal about companies, some companies pulling back here and there, that's not who we are. And so we're firmly committed to the work.
If I could just say, I appreciate NYPA's broad perspective on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as I look at the accessibility issues on the canal, as an older adult who likes to use these facilities, I appreciate the tools that are being presented to me, right? So it's not just about diversity for us, which I like, is a very broad definition that is inclusive of all, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what makes us different. We're not narrowed in on one definition.
Moving over to the IT side of the house, some really great work done by Rob Piasek and his team on the IT side. We've completed the cloud migration. Like many companies, we're fully in the cloud, which helps us financially, as Adam will say, and helps us be more resilient too, since we don't have a huge data center sitting up on the 15th floor in the building here. We're all in the cloud, and so that's been a tremendous achievement this year, as has our disaster recovery effort. The team tells me we're one of the few companies that actually, when they do these exercises, actually shuts everything down and runs the risk of shutting the whole system down to see if we can get it back up.
Oh.
And we were able to get it back up well within the time frame that we set for ourselves, and proving the great work that's been done in that area to make us more resilient. And the team is very, very proud of that work, as we are management and leadership too. And then, on the cyber side, we continue to try to lead the state on cyber. We probably got the most sophisticated cyber operation, certainly in the state family. And one of the things we're doing is partnering with the external companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM, ChatGPT, Gartner, Deloitte, EY, to try to really be best in class on cyber. And like I said, I think we're viewed as a leader, not only in the state family, but also, in the industry, both public power and with the investor-owned utilities. So a lot of great work being done on the cyber side of the house. And then with respect to HR, next slide, please. We spend a lot of time developing our workforce and several programs. This is the Pathways program. As you know, we do a lot of internal training and development. We also have the Lead Blue program. We have our MBA program. Most recently, 13 graduates of the BARD MBA in sustainability. We accepted 15 new students or employees into the program. So it's a real commitment of ours and paying dividends with what we see as real potential leadership candidates within the company coming up through the ranks, and you get to see many of those at the meetings here. So we're really excited about that as well. And then finally, on the economic development and customer front, obviously this is a big part of our work that sometimes doesn't get as much notice as it should, but we're really a lead driver of economic development in the state through our low-cost hydropower programs. So just a few recipients that highlighted in 2024, Global Foundries, the chip manufacturer in the Capital District, Dimensional Energy, and Fairlife all received significant awards. And as you know, I know that's in exchange for either a capital commitment or job creation in the state. We have certain metrics we try to apply to have some consistency around, how many jobs or how much capital, how much hydropower do you get for so many jobs or so much capital. But we're proud of those awards, and obviously they're just three of many. And then on the energy efficiency work for our governmental customers, some really significant work being done around the state in 2024. Phase 2 of the MTA bus charging program, which we're really excited to be partnering with them on. It's a huge fleet of buses that is going to be electrified. And NYCHA's Woodside development, hot water upgrade, decast work at the 57th Street sanitation garage, and the New York City DEP Newtown Creek turbine generator life extension. And again, these are just a few of the projects that we want to bring to your attention and feel good about having done in 2024.
Why don't you just go back a slide,
Sure.
Hold there for a minute.
Yep.
Not a bad year. Maybe more substantively, I think a great drive-by of all the dimensions of NYPA as an organization and all that we bring, how we leverage intellectual capital, financial capital, vision, our passion. Very, very impressive. And I'm sure you have to be incredibly proud of the team and the organization for being able to deliver every year. It's what do we do for an encore, and every year you and the team continue to step it up. So
thank you. Thanks on behalf of the whole team. We're proud of the work we've done. This is kind of a like you said, a drive-by of really our core operations. Happy to answer any questions on any of that before I move on to a new area of activity.
Obviously, Ann will pick us up on the financial side because, by the way, we did all this and still did pretty well financially. He'll pick that up in a little bit. But questions for Justin, thoughts on that? Anything you'd want to add to make 24 notable for any of you?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you highlighted the great work that NYPA, Justin, you and the full team are doing because when you think about the engine that NYPA can provide for development across the state, job creation, economic development, and I've had a chance to visit with you, some of the recharge customers, they really appreciate that. We know in New York State, it's not a low cost state, so everything we can do to lean in on this development. And I know you and your team have a full pipeline of projects and awards going into 2025 as well.
We do, and the customer that we visited together, I'm sure you saw that these hydropower allocations can be the difference between a company making it or not, particularly some of these smaller companies that take advantage of recharge.
It really, obviously a lot.
It can really move the needle. And so it's really great to see, and they're so appreciative of the work that we do.
Yeah. Other thoughts for? All right. Well, again, kudos to you and the team for strong 24. I know we got a couple weeks to finish, and not quite there yet, but you can see the finish line. So, well done.
Thank you. And some of the other presenters will talk about some of the work in 24 and some of the look ahead in 2025. So now moving on to we talked about core core business. Now talking about a new line of business that we've been developing over the last year under last year's budget legislation. So after the enactment of the budget last year, which was around, I think, the first week in May of 2023, we've hit the ground running. We commenced a conferral process in 2023 where we reached out to a number of stakeholders to get their input. We did another such conferral process in 2024. As we also talked to you about, we pre-qualified 84 private developers after issuing RFIs and RFPs for companies that would be interested in partnering with NYPA on renewable projects. And then internally, we set up a new business unit within the company. We also created a subsidiary and the corporate governance around that. And we funded that subsidiary with $100 million recently after your approval of that award. So we've got the infrastructure in place. And most importantly, we issued our draft strategic plan in October. And under the law, we were directed to conduct 3 public hearings to take input with respect to that strategic plan. We went well above and beyond that, and we held 12 such hearings around the state, all over the state, and took input from a number of interested parties. We'll hear more about that from Charles and Vanilla when they'll talk about some of their key takeaways. But we're now having the benefit of concluding that comment period. We will be incorporating that input into the plan that we will bring to you in January. Obviously, we've got a very busy 45 days here to synthesize all the feedback that we took in, not only from the public, but now we'll hear from you and your takeaways from your participation and attendance at the meetings. But we've done a lot of work. The strategic plan, as I know you know, and others have read, identified 40 projects around the state. Vanilla can talk a little bit more about that, but 40 projects totaling roughly 3.5 gigawatts of generation that we've identified in this first year, just keeping in mind that this is just year one. And maybe before going any further.
That's even true with the 84 pre-qualified. We're continuing to take more and all that, right? This is
yes,
the initial step out of the gate, right?
Exactly. I mean,
Okay.
This is our plan will continue to be refined. The
Right.
number of developers we engage with will continue to be supplemented. Yeah, so it's a as they say about the U.S. Constitution, it's a living document, right? Let's, I guess, just provide a little context about where we are and what our charge is. So the state established climate goals, right, in the CLCPA in 2019, 70% clean energy grid by 2030 and 100% by 2040. That's the charge. And the bill
The state's charge.
Yep, that's the charge. And our remit, if you will, is to do as much as we can to assist the state in reaching those goals. That's what we've been charged with through the development of renewable generation. So, that's sort of where we're headed. We want to do that as fast as we can. Obviously, this is the challenge of our lifetime. People are concerned about the progress toward these goals. And so we're trying to do everything we can to help the state accelerate their progress toward those goals. And that's what our first tranche of projects is designed to do. But the good thing is we're not doing it alone. There's a lot of other activity going on around the state. We have just last week, NYSERDA announced an award of 2.4 gigawatts of land and land-based wind and solar. We know we have the Champlain Hudson Power Express bringing Canadian hydropower down to New York City. That's another 1.1 gigawatts of power. We know we have a 100 megawatt offshore wind project already in operation off Long Island, and 2 big offshore wind projects of about, I think, a gigawatt each, another 2 gigawatts of offshore wind in development, plus the NYPA participation. So all that combined is designed to try to meet those goals as fast as we can. And that's that's what we're doing.
Is NYSERDA the quarterback in all of this, or is there a quarterback?
So they're a quarterback on the solicitations for
Yeah.
offshore wind. They also did the solicitation for the Tier 4 Champlain Hudson Power Express and the land-based wind and solar. So the answer is yes, they do the solicitations and enter into the contracts for those projects. And we've, as you may know, we've sought some accommodation, if you will, in the Public Service Commission regulatory process for an accelerated way for us to participate more rapidly in the NYSERDA solicitation process, the recognition of NYPA's role in renewables, so that we can access those renewable energy credits that NYSERDA is soliciting for when they do these projects. So more to come on that, but we did make an application for that in some of the most recent activity. So just give you a sense, like just for a little context here, and I just did this morning, but I looked at the NYSO website to see, how much generation was there needed today, and what does that look like on a peak day. So today it looks like the system needs about 17 gigawatts of generation today. Now, what does that circle look like in New York State?
So what does that 17 do? Make sure we understand.
So that
Needs
supplies all
17.
the generation that the NYSO has identified as needed to meet system needs today.
Across the state, the entire
Correct.
state.
Correct. So I kind of looked at that, and we know that the way that, if that's a pie, the way that pie gets sort of divvied up is historically it's been about 20 to 25% renewables, which is largely the NYPA hydro currently. Maybe 27% or so on renewables, and then about 20 to 25% from the upstate nuclear plants. And then the rest of that other remaining half is fossil. And that's the challenge that we're all racing toward, is trying to replace that 50% of the fossil in the system. And again, 2030, 2040, but we want to do it a lot faster than that, obviously.
What does 17 flex up to on a peak day? I mean,
So peak would
I'm
be
assuming
like
today's
30.
not a peak day, gray,
Tuesday is
cloudy,
not a peak
gloomy.
day. Our peak is around, don't hold me to it, around 31 gigawatts. So that's what you have to kind of stretch for. And unfortunately today, that additional peak is met sometimes by additional fossil, like 10, 15% more fossil might come in to meet that extra peak. So that's sort of like, and with electrification and AI that we've all read about, that's likely to potentially grow.
Increase,
So
right.
that's the challenge that we're all facing. We're trying to help the state and do as much as we can to get us there sooner than later, as fast as we can. So I mentioned a little bit about the public hearings. I'd like Charles Emilhieson and Vanella maybe to come up and answer some questions, but first start with their key takeaways from the public hearing process, and then I'll come back up and wrap it up.
Talk
After
next
there.
steps and,
Correct.
okay.
All right.
Any questions for Justin before Charles jumps up? I mean,
I'll
fact-based,
come back up.
but you got,
Okay.
okay,
That
we're,
was very helpful.
okay,
Justin, thank you.
good intro. Table setting there.
All right.
Hey, Charles Vanella, how are you?
All right,
Thank you.
we're doing good. All right, good morning, board, EMC public. Appreciate you letting me take a few minutes today to share some of our learnings from the recent Renewable Strategic Plan public hearings. Let me begin by first thanking the trustees, thanking Justin, thanking my fellow EMC members for their generous support and leadership and guidance as we planned through this process and then executed it. It was really through their leadership that we were able to be committed to be inspired by excellence in the way we executed this work. We look forward to taking the lessons learned for future public hearings and to support future strategic plans. With that in mind, as we plan these hearings, my staff, which is Community Affairs, Legislative, Environmental Justice, and Corporate Communications, and I set a few goals, which were sort of meant to be guideposts in how we thought about what a successful stakeholder engagement process might look like for NYPA, from NYPA's perspective going forward. So we really had three primary objectives here that we set forth. The first is we had a statutory requirement to have at least 3 public hearings. Our goal was to exceed that statutory minimum. So we, in fact, ended up having 12 total sessions. We strongly believe that it was important to hear, at this time from as many different voices as we could. So we wanted to create as much runway to do that as possible. Second, and referring back to the comments that were made earlier about diversity and the importance of diversity of opinion, we wanted to make sure we heard from as wide a range of stakeholders as we could. So not only did we want to do a lot of hearings, we wanted them to do those hearings in a lot of places across New York State, so we would benefit from the diversity of public opinion across the state. And then lastly, I think we recognize that a lot of people are not that familiar with the intricacies of the power sector. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot of different entities involved. So we actually wanted to use this opportunity to also inform the public a little bit more about that. How do you get your electricity? What is NYPA's role in doing that? And then also obviously share more information about our draft plan and how our draft plan plays into that. So those were sort of the three core goals that we had that you see up here from the public hearings. Here we go, the next slide. So if those were our goals, how did we do? So let's take a look at some of the numbers here. We held 12 public hearings, 2 hour public hearings, again, diverse geographies across the state, starting in Niagara, heading to Binghamton, and then Albany, New York City, Long Island. We also had a virtual hearing. Those sessions were intended to maximize accessibility. And again, back to the point about being as available as we could be for members of the public. It's a total of 24 hours of public hearings, 2-hour sessions each. And again, accessibility was really important here. We weren't able to hold a full hearing in all places we would have liked to, including in our St. Lawrence facility, but we were able to stream virtually. And thanks very much to Trustee Morris, who volunteered to welcome some members of the public who were able to join us at that facility in person. We also made sure we had all of our hearings subject to ASL and Spanish interpreters. We were very pleased to have a very robust response, no surprise there. And we heard a very wide range of opinions and recommendations, as I would expect from New Yorkers. And we received 272 written and emailed comments through our web portal and our directory to public comments from our email address. Finally, we had 171 public speakers and over 450 attendees and 100 viewers at our virtual hearings. We were able to collect feedback from stakeholders with these diverse viewpoints and perspectives on the draft plan. We'll get into that a little bit more shortly. Vanilla will share a little bit more about what we heard. But really, the public outreach that we conducted here was key to achieving those objectives. So talking a little bit more about what we did to get to that point, we placed ads about the hearing in the Buffalo News, the Binghamton Press, Sun and Bulletin, Albany Times Union, Watertown Daily Times, North Country Now, AM New York, and Newsday. Justin mentioned it earlier, the importance of our engagement here, and so he participated as well. He actually launched us with a media interview for the Capitol Press Room, and throughout the hearings, Vanilla engaged in more than 10 interviews with reporters, written, and TV. We also regularly promoted our hearings on social media, both a week out and the day before the hearings, reminding people to show up and participate. Beyond the formal channels, I know a lot of the NYPA EMC and leadership and board also shared to their personal networks and when they were speaking at events, speaking at conferences. So we're very confident that the news got out pretty widely. We thought it was critically important to recognize as well that this change in our public outreach approach at NYPA for a new program like this required really support and engagement from the entirety of the organization. So this was a truly one NYPA effort. So I do want to also thank all those other groups, departments across NYPA who helped make this possible. We're completely and entirely grateful for our colleagues' support, without which we would not have been able to reach as many New Yorkers as we did. With that said, as sort of the background around the process, I want to turn it over to
Before
Vanilla.
you do, if we done any kind of outreach like this in the past, Justin, is there anything that we've done that would be comparable in terms of how effective this was and how broad,
No, I mean, this was really our first effort at this scale. I mean, as you know, we do hearings on our hydropower awards regularly, but that's not like this, right, Karen? So we do have public hearings when we award hydropower, but this was really, not something that we had done before, and the team did a great job.
Mr. Chairman, if I, just on behalf of all of the trustees here, this was an awesome and exceptional execution by all of NYPA to organize this. I mean, 12 hearings across the state, 450 people attended in person. The work getting to organize this, and I just have to, Charles, your team, but all of NYPA, this was a Herculean task. And I'll tell you, again, the statute said we had to have 3 hearings, right? And we had 12, including a virtual hearing. I just have to commend all of NYPA to be as open, transparent, and the outreach is just phenomenal. So I just wanted, on behalf of the board, to say thank you, everybody, Justin, your full team, Charles, everyone that helped to get the rooms organized, to get folks there, the outreach, the emails, the postings, and all of the local papers across the state. Just kudos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Agreed.
just to add, there were really 3 parts of every hearing in the in-person ones. There was the public coming in, there were graphs, charts, signs that the public could go up and see. Not only did your team, but Vanessa's team was there answering questions as people were coming in. And then the hearings themselves, there were a lot of people that came forward, and thank you to the public for doing it. It's not easy as someone whose day job is doing a lot of these hearings. I see that people would come forward and they would speak. There were other people who maybe just wanted to sit back and listen. And that's what ended up in that third kind of pot of what happened was the staff stayed. They were there. People felt comfortable coming up to you all, asking questions again. And that engagement is so extremely important. And so just wanted to kind of flag that from my observation. Not only were there the hearings, but there were really kind of 3 components to each. And again, the translation, the ASL support, having that stenographer there. You all are also always willing to say, okay, we did this, but how do we learn and grow? And we've had some of those conversations, and I think it was really beautifully done. And we'll just, again, constantly be growing and learning from this experience. But good job to everyone that was involved. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Vanessa. Close us out here.
Thank you,
It's a good
Charles.
process, even better outcomes. Okay.
Thank you, Charles. Good morning, trustees and members of the public. I have to say, greatly appreciate everything that has gone into this. My team and several members of my team and myself were at every single one of these hearings. When you do this day in, day out, you know what you're working on, you know what this means and what it takes, etc. But to have that opportunity to hear from how it is perceived when you put it in words, in writing, and greatly appreciate everybody that showed up, whether virtual or otherwise, and greatly appreciate the public for their feedback as well. It gives us a different perspective of how we could be looking, but also it gave us an opportunity to take them along with us on our journey of what it took to even bring us to get here, basically. So with that, what did we hear? Going back to Chairman, what you'd said earlier when Justin was presenting, and Trustee Warren, what you'd said, NYPA does a variety of things. So it's only expected that the views and the perspectives and the feedback we received were also a wide range of views and perspectives. But the one consistent theme that emerged from nearly all stakeholders that were engaged is that irrespective of the views they expressed, and about the substantive aspects that we have in our plan was that they appreciated our presentation, they appreciated the explanation of our plan and our work to reach as many people as many New Yorkers as we can to hear from them. So heard from individuals from groups across the state, beginning with our current customers that have their own opinion and perspective of what this means to them, organized labor, environmental advocacy groups, political organizers, chambers of commerce, industry associations, higher educational institutions such as Niagara University, SUNY leadership, CUNY leadership and professors, local school districts leaderships, and not-for-profit organizations, and engineers with new ideas about new energy and emerging technologies and what it should look like, what the new, in a way, New York should look like in the energy spectrum. So here's a little bit of what we heard. There have been requests that NYPA increase its capacity beyond the initial 3.5 gigawatts of solar and wind and battery energy storage projects we have identified to 15 gigawatts or more, possibly. Again, I would want to reiterate that this is the first tranche of projects that we have in our pipeline. But Chairman Koelmel, going back to your point, even about the RFQ and pre-qualified, as of yesterday, we have pre-qualified 89. That number from 84 went up already, and we continue to engage more partners that are willing to collaborate with NYPA as well. Others who shared concerns about affordability and reliability of our plan, opinions that NYPA should focus more on building more hydro and nuclear rather than investing in more intermittent resources such as solar or wind. Concerns about loss of agricultural land and desire for increased siting of projects on public lands and possibly brownfields landfills. And another point there as well, about 50% of our self-developed projects, even in this first tranche, are actually repurposing such lands. It's either sited on brownfields, landfills, or former correctional facilities. So we are repurposing it. We had mentioned it during the public hearings, but one of our colleagues put it the best way, right? Turning the brown into green, or actually turning the brownfields into bright fields is what we're calling it. So then there was actually an ask for NYPA to build more distributed generation assets, especially in the more demand-centered areas such as Hudson Valley, New York City, and the downstate, like including Long Island areas. So now that we have closed our commenting period, our staff and trustees will review the written comments and the transcripts of the oral comments that we've received, and NYPA will prepare the final renewable strategic plan. I know our trustees have questions, but I'll stop there and open it up to you for anything you may have.
What, if anything, surprised you? I mean, obviously there's, a lot of passion and energy, literally and figuratively here. Anything that really surprised you as you journeyed across the state?
I'm going to look to Charles to chime in here as well, but more than a surprise, I think in some ways it was reassuring that we're on the right track. There is, again, the variety and the range of comments and feedback. What we received was, in a way, not necessarily surprising, but the breadth that we had to adapt. Some could potentially be outside of the purview of this particular expanded authority and this particular strategic plan itself. For example, talking about there is a clear definition of which technologies qualify or eligible under renewable generation according to New York state law and the clean energy standard, right? So the requests for certain other ones do not fall within this current expanded authority's purview, although they may align with what NYPA is looking. So the element that at least my biggest takeaway is they look to us as one NYPA. They're looking to NYPA to continue to do what we've been doing and continue to do more in all spaces of energy in New York State. So.
All right. I want to have a good discussion around the table. I think I want to start by thanking everyone, because I know all of you took time to participate. So we all have the benefit sitting here today of observing the process firsthand, of observing the interaction and the commentary. Some went to more than one. So I thank all of you for making the time. But we want to take the next upwards of half an hour to share thoughts, observations, and further the dialogue that will obviously continue through the end of January when we more formally approve the launch, and we'll continue obviously from there forward as we further build it out. But start us up. I don't know, Laurie, you want to start us up?
Sure, and I'm sure we'll get some good discussion from us all. So again, first and foremost, thank you so much. Thank you to the public. Again, knowing it's not easy to get up at that microphone and speak, or even virtually. I think the timing of this was just level set, very powerful. Buffalo happened 2 days after the election. There were active wildfires. All of us were feeling that here in New York, and really evaluating leadership, hope, strong principles and guideposts, like you just mentioned, Vanilla. In Albany, I had some middle schoolers from North Albany Middle School sixth graders who are going through a lot right now, but I had a group of them come with me and they helped me track my comments and the comments that came in. So I just wanted to recognize those amazing students as they go through a lot this week personally. But, you know, those hearings really helped me in this seat to kind of start hearing what things are out there, what ideas. You know, you all are helping us track them. I still have to read quite a bit, but there's about 16, which I'm not going to go through all, kind of, you know, different pieces of information that were coming up. That theme of, you know, being bold, calling on FDR, like this is our time. Workforce labor, the important element that plays was really powerful. You know, interest in, you know, where are these 40 projects? Are there timelines, more information, questions about some of them, which I thought was really interesting. Then getting deeper, you know, can we focus on the building sector? Is that an area where maybe we can partner more? The diversification question as far as not just solar and wind and battery, but nuclear, biogas, hydro, geothermal, solar canopies, which I think is interesting. We just talked about those at JFK, so that's interesting. Farmland, so not going into that. And then specific regions and groups, you know, more in New York City, Long Island, how to do more potentially in the Hudson Valley to help with that congestion. SUNY and CUNY, you know, obviously we already have relationships with them, but can we do deeper partnerships? For instance, CUNY said that they, some of the staff said they have over 300 buildings. And then really interesting questions. Vanilla, you said, you know, turning the brown into green. There were a couple of people who were like, okay, this is my community. If I have a brownfield or a super fund, how do we know that it's clean? How do we know it's safe for you all to build with us living around it? So there was just some really interesting, you know, conversations and comments we got to hear. And again, that's just my like high level right there. I'd love to hear from, you know, my fellow trustees and, you know, what you all thought, but it was, again, very powerful and I still have to review even more.
That's very comprehensive, Laurie. And I'm glad you took your class, your son's class to help.
They
you.
loved
They
it.
loved
They're
it.
like, bring us back.
I just wanted to add two things on Laurie's comments. One, it was powerful to hear the passion around NYPA leaning forward in this moment of time. It was just powerful, the engagement. And I think Laurie's details comments captured all of that. The second thing is the support that one that Dennis and I went to, the support for our organized labor unions colleagues. I mean, there were 3 or 4 speakers who were super supportive of our plan, wanted to be partners with us across all of the activities that we're doing across the state. But that groundswell of passion with our the members of our community who's going to help to build this as we go forward was really palatable in the sessions that we went through.
If I could just add, just the fact that we had the conversations after everything was over and how everyone stayed around and talked, it was just incredible. It was really well done, and you should keep up the great work.
Cecily, your takeaways. I realize you were participated virtually. We weren't able to physically get up to the North Country, but your thoughts and takeaways from what obviously was a engaged virtual session.
It really was. We opened up the visitor center. The morning session had a number of people, and that was really good. Different people from around the community. One of the attendees was a representative from Clarkson. She provided me a brochure, and I passed that off to Justin. But people are really interested. They appreciated the opportunity to be in person. And I know that wasn't easy. And I thank Jeff and Mario and Charles for making the space available for people to actually come. Some of the people who attended were Power Authority staff who really appreciated the opportunity to see how this process works. But same as Laurie and Louis, people generally are very, very positive and supportive of what we're starting to do, what our task is, how we're stepping forward and recognizing that this is just the start. And the support was noticeable. And that was good. That was encouraging. Again, even though we didn't have staff, well, we didn't have you present or your staff present, people talked about it. They stayed around. They talked about it. They appreciated the opportunity to be heard. And that's part of the process, right? So we put that out there. Now we're going to take all of these comments, and there's as many in twice as many in writing as oral, and come up with the strategic plan. But the plan is the start, and I think that's what I think most people understood, that we're starting. This is new. We're starting. But no, I think we're headed in the right direction, and I look forward to the revised draft, the final draft that we can take a look at and move it forward.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I just echo my fellow trustees. I had the pleasure, I wanted to try to hit more than one, Mr. Chair, but I was able to hit the Albany one and witness some of them online too. But my takeaways were, one, NYPA has a fantastic staff that could pull something off like that, which I knew before I went to the hearing, but it was good to see the public witnessing that. But also it was, we're excited here in this boardroom every day when we hear this news, but to see the people get up and the people that came to the hearing in Albany were excited about where we're going and how we're going to be helping the state move forward. This was exciting to watch the people who participated. As mentioned by my fellow trustees, that I was not surprised, but it was good to see the diversity in the opinions and also the ideas that were given to our folks at the hearing. The diversity of those ideas really, I think, helps our team move forward. As mentioned, this is just a start, and this allows us the tools and the input from the public to give us maybe some ideas we didn't think of, or were amendments of ideas that our team had put together. So I thought it was a great public hearing, not just because of the execution of it, but what it's going to grow from there and how the plan is going to grow.
Dennis, anything you want to add to what you said earlier? B?
I think I would just add that it's creating opportunities for us to be better at what we've already started, right? So the geographic diversity of the hearings and the comments reminds us that parity is important to people across the state of New York, and how we build that parity into our work is going to be critical. So for me, it was that, right? It was an opportunity to hear from our community, to hear from across the state, and take lessons that they're providing us, right? And figuring out how to implement them to make us a better organization and to deliver a better product. So that was exciting for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
My quick thoughts, varied. One, underscores the importance of communication. The benefits of outreach and the importance of the dialogue. There's a huge educational component here, two-way street. And for all that we do, it underscored the importance, whether it's we as a board hearing firsthand, but for us as an organization, while we take pride in all the stats and the numbers, and they look large and significant, to just have that many more touch points, I think is incredibly important for us. And one, we need to figure out how we can sustain that. How we can further and better connect with our constituents across the state on an ongoing basis. Two, the business person in me, I listen to and read and see a lot of aspirational ideas and how we better inform and dialogue. I realize this is all part of the continuing process that we'll pick up. Aspirational and just organizational capacity, our ability to deliver on a significant challenge, and undefined, ill-defined, easy to talk about the what, very hard to talk about the how. I mean, I'm preaching to, the choir here, obviously. It's easy to pound the table and say, come on, Bethaida, let's go. Here's the what, but it's how we get there. More importantly, how we as an organization. So how we continue to inform and educate, how we stretch our own creative thinking. Always take great pride in this organization being unbelievably creative. I say the intellectual capital is more impressive than the financial capital, but this is a real significant moment for us to really be creative. That said, we can't get too far out over our skis because, I'd rather be incrementally successful than reach for the stars and fail, because we can't afford failure's not an option here. So how we continue to move that forward. Within that context, my takeaway too was our ability to enable and engage the private sector to be part of this is huge. I mean, I knew that going in, but it's just all the more clear coming out. Hence, for me personally, the 51% ownership interest is a bit of a challenge. Adam and I have had some discussions as recent as yesterday, some of his ideas, things like that, how we deal and cope and how that evolves, over time, so that, we can reinvest our capital, redeploy our capital. We can do the loaves and fishes routine, as I like to say, bit of a challenge and, an opportunity that doesn't unduly restrict us. So I realize that's all part of next steps and all part of the evolution of this. And, I think initially we've gotten a lot of aspirational passion and energy, which is tremendous. And kudos to all of you for enabling that. So now it's how do we filter that in a systematic and structured and organized and substantive way, and how do we lean in, starting with the initial, and how does that get modified and then expanded and grow. But accountability, discipline, intentionality, is all the more important here, so that it isn't just passion and aspiration that drives us, but that it's balanced with an appropriate dose of reality and capacity and execution and good accountability. So, thoughts as you listen to any of that before kind of pivot back to the next steps? And
again, I would say on a personal note, and speaking on behalf of my team as well, there were so many things that we learned about NYPA, and that's who we are, right? There are so many amazing things that we do, and cannot be more glad to be here with all of your support. So greatly appreciate it. And what you've given is, again, the ideas and thoughts, same we got from the public as well to some extent, including actually some specific project leads, which our team is extra grateful for.
Great.
So thank you very much again for all the support.
Great work.
yeah, Justin, in terms of next steps and how we go forward, you want to kind of bring closure here, come back up and bring closure to this? Thanks, Vanilla. Thanks, Charles.
And I think I alluded to it briefly earlier, but so we're still synthesizing all this information we gathered over these hearings, right? We also have now heard from you and your takeaways. So we're going to be pulling all that together. We're going to, over the next 45 days, come back to you well in advance of the January 28th board meeting with our revisions to the draft plan based upon the input we received and the input we received from you. And then, of course, we'll be taking that plan to you on January 28th at our board meeting. And then following up with that with the filing with the legislature no later than January 31. So we'll be hard at work over the next 45 days in pulling this information together and bringing that to you, like I said, well in advance. So we'll be interacting with you.
Just how do you see that interaction? What are you thinking in terms of the continuing dialogue with us between now and the end of January?
So I think we'll regroup with you individually. We may divvy that up among staff, but we'll regroup with you individually just to kind of, touch base after today. We'll share with you some of our initial thinkings around the revisions and modifications and so forth, and get additional feedback. And then, of course, we'll come back to you with a writing for your review well in advance of the 28th.
Okay. That said, I assume you and the team feel that you're directionally on point with the draft as presented. You feel good about, where we are, as opposed to, whoa, we really missed the target, or wow, we've got to reboot or restart this process?
I mean, I think, again, as I said earlier, I think that this plan, in the amount of time we had to pull it together, and at the same time, establish a new division within the company and come to you with approvals to get all that work started. I think directionally, we're on the right track. Like we said, and you said, this is just our first effort out of the blocks here. A lot more to come. This is a real commitment that we've made internally to this. We want to make sure that we do this in a very efficient and very informed way, as we like to do at NYPA. So we'll come back to you with that work product in January.
Any reactions from anybody on the next 45 days and all the rest of that?
Yeah, I mean, the next 45 days are obviously so important. And another step is this train is moving, right? Like, I think we all see this, we know it. But honestly, I think Vanilla said it best in the hearings, that the plan itself will be renewable. And so having more structure around, I think, what that is will be very helpful for us and the public and honestly the teams as well, as we all are on this moving train and trying to go fast and what all that means. So thank you. Also knowing that 45 days goes like that. So we're here for you.
Thank you. And then during that window, we may want to share some of the additional projects that we're thinking about adding in early 2025. So just give you a little sort of preliminary look at what we plan to add to the plan in 2025.
Yeah, I think reaffirming that evolving reality is important.
Correct.
We talk about it as a moving train, but frankly, the train is just getting rolling. I mean, we haven't really even hit the official starting line. So, we haven't quite left the station yet. So that's how I look at the train metaphor relative to January. So January will start to leave the station, but it would be good to start the dialogue on the next stops,
what's coming
next opportunities, that continuous growth and improvement, so that everyone has a good handle on the evolving renewable nature of this, and its continuous growth, continuous opportunity. Because there's going to be hits and misses, and we need to keep refilling the funnel and
restocking the ponds.
Well. Yeah,
restocking the
whatever
ponds.
metaphor one wants to use.
And so we're excited to share that with you. And
so I agree. That would be, I think, a good component of this as well. So we don't, create, it starts and starts. Nope, it's just a continuum along the way. And even Vanilla said an additional, 5 developers have been approved. So, we all have a good handle for the growth and what that opportunity looks like. And because we can't solve it on our own. This is, how do we engage the broader population? How do we be part of a broader solution?
Right.
So, okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, great. Good job. Thank you, everyone. Well done. No applause necessary. Until at least 2030.
Got our tickets for this
2030 for the first round of applause. Okay. How are we doing on time? All right, Joe, you're up. So obviously you're anxious and you're ready.
Want to make sure.
Yeah, you're up and out. So the podium is yours.
Good morning, Chairman, trustees, members of the public, and staff. Joe Kessler, Chief Operating Officer of the New York Power Authority. And just to give you an update, because that was a tough act to follow here, on some of the things that we were proud of accomplishing in 24 and what we're looking forward to in operations in 25 as well. So the idea of what we're trying to do here is, I think everybody knows we're taking a second look, kind of a halftime look at our Vision 2030 and what we're trying to do. And there's a proposed Vision 2030 renewed. And we're trying to make sure that what we're doing in operations is aligning with all this new exciting things that we're doing and making sure that we're leveraging our talents to execute this vision more appropriately. We're fortunate in that we were in the right direction with our ISO 55001 certification, which kind of lends a template or a rubric for us to look at how we're doing things and making sure that we're focusing in the right priority areas throughout the organization. And we did this through a real collaborative and cross-functional effort over the last year, seeking input across our entire business unit to make sure that we're doing that. And what we're going to see going forward is a more streamlined set of goals that are going to be improving the line of sight for the general staff with what we're trying to accomplish. As I've been kind of directing people, if you read Vision 2030 and you understand what it is, if it's not on that list, it's something you should be not doing necessarily, or we should be reprioritizing. So we only have so much gunpowder, whether it's intellectual resources or financial resources. We need to make sure that we're all aligned in doing what we need to do to get that forward. So these are a couple of categories on this slide that we're obviously taking a look at that are in operations. Clean energy transformation and lead in transmission. We're taking advantage of the collegial nature of our industry to think about, to contact other utilities and other, through LPPC, through Hydropower Research Institute, other organizations to see what's the best way for us to leverage our own asset base and making investments decisions. What we're learning is everybody's facing the same kinds of challenges, whether it's hyperscaling, load growth, whether it's reliability issues, compliance nature, AI. There's a lot of workforce issues, supply chain issues. So we're able to leverage these relationships that we're in with other organizations to look at those workforce competencies and skill sets and make sure we have what we need to get those that transition in place. And we're making a paradigm shift. We've been doing this for a number of years, but it's getting a little bit more legs around condition-based monitoring. So we're gonna have to continue to optimize what we're doing with our existing asset base and make sure that this more routine frequency-based monitoring is something that we can obsolete in time and just understand better the visibility of what we have in the condition of our assets and make appropriate investments going forward in that as well. From a customer size decarbonization, we're pursuing renewable energy credits and small hydro strategies that will help customers reach their decarb goals. We're working also very closely with Anella's team on, matching some of the ideas that are coming from the renewables work with our customers. Some are actually coming from the other direction. Our customers also have ideas. But one of the things that we learned recently in talking to some of our larger customers that we've met is that we have a number of faces for our customers. Some of it is the economic development programs and some of the more traditional things that we think of, but we're also learning that, for example, chip fab manufacturers have power quality issues. We have experts in power quality here that may be able to help guide them, whether our involvement's direct in supporting what they're doing, but at least give them ideas of where they go. So we're leveraging those relationships and our internal competencies to support customers more thoroughly. And then from a canals perspective, as we gain more visibility on the assets and the condition of the assets that we have over the last several years, and you've been hearing how we've been reporting that we're looking at more of the reliability issues and more of the priorities that are centered around fortifying and maintaining the integrity of the infrastructure while also enhancing that user experience that we're trying to create here. And in the January meeting, we're going to have further updates for you on canals. The canals capital plan with ongoing winter work is in progress. Some pump outs. I know the trustees have expressed some interest to visit the plant. We encourage the work there. We encourage that, and we'll be working with Dave Mellon and team to support that. And we also have on one way we keep a finger on the pulse of the public is this Canal Recreation Commission. We're kind of rebooting or refreshing the look of what that commission is doing as well. To take ideas on what how the communities see the canal infrastructure and from their perspective and things that we can do in our plan to support that work as well. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess I was a little bit premature on the next slide, but we're going to continue to work and partner with the innovation and cutting edge technology that will drive and accelerate decarbonization as well. And we're projecting to install over 200 EV chargers in 2025. And then we're also going to work more on customer centricity. We launched a customer segment educational programs in 2024, been largely successful, and developed customer teams and dashboards for our tier 1 customers. So they have increased visibility on how, what support, the collaboration and support that NYPA has. And we have also created and maintained an executive contact program where regionally, for example, if there's Western New York clients, because I live out that way, I'm able to support the customer team working with them directly as well. The good news is our overall customer satisfaction scores continue to improve. We've won some awards for like the Forrester B2B program in the project management category. And the customer solutions team has also held 2 regional customer solutions seminars in Western New York and the Capital Region for 50+ local government and state agency customers. They included presentations about NYPA services, as I described earlier, tailored for the regional attendees, and a feature of a tour of a NYPA asset in that region. Team is planning to keep that momentum going on in 25 as well. And the team will be documenting an enterprise-wide customer strategy to establish a deep understanding of the customer experience through personas, journey maps, and data analysis.
Did we just, on the EV charger thing, didn't I just see something that we're tracking okay there?
We are.
That's what I thought,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we are. It's from when we talking about Evolve, the fast chargers.
Yeah, and I thought there was some other outreach or
Yeah, I mean,
recent correspondence that hit my inbox
Yeah.
around
Well, what-
EVs.
yes.
I mean, aren't we in a good spot there?
We are. I was
Okay.
just gonna remind folks that we launched Evolve, probably 2018, 2019. A lot has happened in that EV charger industry since then.
Right.
And so while we started off plugging in all the gaps in the highly traveled networks that the investor-owned utilities weren't interested in doing because the economics weren't there yet. There weren't enough cars, so there wasn't enough justification for the infrastructure spend. So we sort of plugged in all those gaps. So we'd be up to like 400 DC fast chargers. But now we're sort of pivoting since that role has kind of been completed. The private sector's come along, and we're focusing more on the work we're doing for customers on our governmental customer locations. So more customer-sited EV charging. But we're working with the city of New York. There's still a lot of work to be done for sure.
Right.
But in terms of the mission of that initial Evolve, it is evolved.
Right. It's an evolving evolution. Okay.
So Justin touched on a lot of this in his remarks, so I won't go into too much detail, but I just want to make the point on this first column here on the decarbonization of the customer power, that the ones that he highlighted around Global Foundries, Dimensional Energy, and Fairlife are among 91 total awards in all the different programs in 141 megawatts. So this accounts for just those programs, just those awards from last year, 10,600 jobs committed and over 6.5 billion in capital expenditures. We've also, again, as I mentioned, talked to Vanella and her team. We've identified 5 NYPA Renewables customer sites with the potential for 150 megawatts of demand, and the teams will continue to collaborate with NYPA Renewables for those opportunities. And one thing we learned, and actually kind of became apparent to me at the last board meeting as we were talking with Vanilla, is that we don't need to be competing for our own internal resources when it's all the same customers. So whether it depends, and Justin talked about this peak load issue that we're 17 gigawatts today. I think the record's around 34. But as we encroach on that record, the percentage of renewables goes down because the peakers are taking up more.
Sure.
The good news is we're not really likely to hit that peak anymore because behind the meters, another 7 or 8 gigawatts of solar that's customer sited. So again, we're all taking a bite of the same apple as we're trying to decarbonize. So working much more collaboratively with that group to make sure that internal resources are prioritizing them to get the most impact. And I think he touched on the Port Authority, which agreed to 44,000 tier 1 RECs. And we're continuing to refine strategy in 25 around REC, economic development, and merchant portfolio. Decarbonizing customers, again, Justin touched on the key ones, the MTA, DCAS, and others. Those also represent about 20,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided. I think the interesting thing about this category is, and what we're trying to do here is the look at the DL50, this Decarbonization Leadership 15. We've done a lot of good work in helping people build their master plans, their organizations build their master plans, and we're going to continue to do that. We are on track. We're still doing some data collection in 24. So we'll really hit the ground in 25 doing some of that good work. But Build Smart New York is also on track for 9.3 tera-BTUs and expect to hit its goal of 11 tera-BTUs by the end of 2025. So we're on track with Build Smart, which was a 2025 goal. But we're also looking at what that's going to look like for a 2030 goal. So we're currently working on that as well. The interesting thing is that the target was more geared toward energy efficiency. And now I think we're going to look at measures to be more along the lines of a decarbonization. So I think the more energy efficient you get, there's a natural correlation, but we're really focused on the carbon. I think we can go to the next slide, please. So internally, we're not real pleased with our safety record this year. We have not hit our target for what we call the DART rate. We used to report this more on a routine basis with the board. More recently, we're trying to talk more strategically with the board about what we're trying to do here. So I just want to make a couple points about this. Though we're not happy with this, our target's always 0. So it doesn't matter if there's any number there. Our target's always 0 for safety. But we're fortunate in that the majority of the NYPA target injuries have been like these ergonomic injuries. So they haven't been that serious. But again, that doesn't, we don't take any deprioritization on it. These are still people that, couldn't come to work or otherwise impacted. So we want to make sure we're focused on that. So we're in 25, we're going to be utilizing our ergonomics vendor to increase that exposure because we have been able to categorize those injuries statistically, and it's mostly just moving parts, things like that. Canals very similarly has a 4.38 against their target of 3.25. What's kind of untold here is that's a significant improvement over the years that Canals has changed. We've had a hard time benchmarking what Canals work really is. In Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's tough to see like what a canal corporation is. So we kind of look at different things, or whether it's longshoremen or whether it's marine work or things like that, to try to come up with a good target ratio. We do believe our target is achievable, and I know Dave Mellon and the team are working further to trace what those trends are and to tackle those as well. The pyramid just represents a way that we like to visually look at this. We want to start leveraging technology to mitigate risks. You see some examples in the room of drones that are sitting in the corner over here. These are, in lieu of potentially climbing transmission lines, in lieu of confined spaces, things that do put employees at risk. We're using a lot of automation to try to mitigate some of that and prevent that, and enhance their ability to look at things through, enhanced reality or virtual reality and 3D models. As they look at that as well. So we're going to continue to look at technology as a way to improve safety. Training, of course. Justin again touched on this. It's we're really focused on the development of our competencies of our organization. We've had a lot of retirements and resignations over the years. A lot of new employees. It's a very dangerous industry. We want to make sure they're up to speed on not only the fundamental dangers around the work that we do, but also the best practices in mitigating the injuries there. So we're going to continue to work hard with that. And just to have some tangible safety benefits, reducing the incident related to manual inspections, falls, electrical hazards. There's another, using technology to support that as well as something that we're looking to do. So these tools and methods demonstrate how NYPA is continuously working to improve the safety performance while supporting employee productivity and engagement. So it's not just a priority, it's our commitment.
What were the ramifications of any of that, Joe? I mean, this is kind of my running question over the years. So we have aspirational targets, and I fully endorse no injury.
Yeah.
But I mean, were we compromised operationally? Were we less effective, less efficient as a result of this? Or help me from a more, I hate to say, cold business perspective. The fact that we didn't hit target, is that a fail, or, well, we just didn't hit the ideal?
So historically, in the most recent cases that I talked about, these ergonomic type of injuries, it has not had a significant impact.
Define an ergonomic
So
injury,
someone twists their back picking up a package, or so now they can't work, or they got a lifting limitation, they hurt their shoulder. So they have a day away. The DART is days away, restricted or otherwise transferred. So if they're restricted in any way, they got a lifting restriction from their doctor, or we accommodate them the best we can to put them back to work as they want to typically.
So when I get too many Amazon boxes, this time of year,
you're
I have an
restricted.
ergonomic
Exactly.
injury from lifting those.
So that happens, but you don't want it to happen at all. So those are the things. So those don't have a significant operational impact. We have had more significant instances historically where whether it's someone fell from a height that broke an ankle or things like that, where we do stop work.
Yeah.
And we have stopped work recently. And we actually had some construction work even recently. We have stopped work with contractors to say, well, let's take a breath here and find out what's going on. You have a trend going. A few major incidents here of people who are out.
We did that this year.
As recently as this year. So we did a stand down on, I think it was Spark Path or Smart Path Connect. I don't have Trish Lombardi here to correct me. It was one of the two construction projects that we're doing in transmission right now.
And what was the root cause issue?
There was a bunch of different issues, but the root cause issue for them was a lot of people being in line of fire, they call it. So like if a truck is backing up and you don't have enough people letting them know that the truck is backing up and they have all these other protections on, they're in the line of fire, they may get bumped by that truck or vehicle or things like that. So staying out of the line of fire of anything that you're doing, whether it's opening a valve, don't stand where it's going to open. I see Dennis. I see Dennis Trainor smiling at me, but he understands that, electrical issues and things like that. We don't see a lot of those majors. We've seen arc flashes, for example, but have not been significant today. We did have a significant near miss at Niagara on an issue that there was not an incident per se. It was a real near miss, but a significant potential arc flash issue that we had. Actually, I would call it an incident. We also had at the Canal Corporation a stand down because we had an employee fall into an open access hatch somewhere on the order of 15 feet, right, David? Could have been significantly more serious than it was. They ended up walking out of there. They had some restrictions, but we saw him at the safety barbecues. He's doing all right now, but that could have been significant. We did do a stand down for that. So that's when it starts having operational impacts. And if you might remember a few years ago, we had a couple of helicopter incidents. Those projects were stopped indefinitely until we resolved those issues. So we do, it can have an impact.
I don't want to be dismissive because on one hand, the accountant in me goes, okay, target's 0.8, we're at 1.2, that's a 50%, or 50% over target. And 50% over target's a fail in most any business on any key driver metric. So that's what I'm saying. Is this a fail or and do we have a real issue, or is this, for the people are impacted, it's a fail, but for the business, no, we're doing fine. That's what I'm trying to get at.
It's always difficult, and from my perspective, it's always difficult in the safety discussion to talk about that, because when you talk about a failure, like these numbers are indicating to me a failure, like we failed on here. Did it impact our business financially or otherrise?
Operationally,
not typically.
People
we failed the employee.
I understand
and
that.
So,
I'm not being dismissive.
But the reason we treat them the same, we put such emphasis, is if you have a near miss or an incident that you say the taproot or the root cause was that there was a trip and someone fell off a curb and twisted an ankle versus falling off a curb and falling 20 feet to something worse, we have to treat those incidents and that root cause the same way so that everybody is culturally understanding what they're doing there.
Okay.
So it's always tough to distinguish that because it's what could have happened is always a bigger thing for us.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So going forward, 24-25, some infrastructure project highlights. These are projects that you'll be familiar with, some of the contracts that you've helped us fund and award over the years. One of them is up in St. Lawrence, the 90-ton crane replacement. So these are extremely large gantry cranes that are designed to lift the entire unit out of the hole. So anytime there's an issue where it needs maintenance or be pulled apart for anything, we need a crane of that capacity to deal with it. So a lot of times the plants will call this, for example, it's in Messina, there's 16 generators that we're responsible to call this the 17th unit. In Niagara, we call it the 14th unit because there's 13 there. And the idea is that if this goes down, it could be a major issue for us. So we're taking an opportunity now where there's no major work on the generators scheduled to take a look at the crane and actually rebuild it in place. So this is going to be a brand new crane. It's actually going to be a 100-ton rated crane because we are starting to understand that there's some dynamic loads in the new equipment that may require that capacity. So we're looking forward to doing that work. The Messina Canal Dam is another one that it was a historic from the old Alcoa powerhouse. So we referred that to the Messina Canal Dam, and it's part of a purchase agreement that the St. Lawrence Power Project had. The facility was partially decommissioned in 1958, however, continues to deteriorate. So we're going to do some work on that too. And I think you've seen some renderings in previous meetings on that. So you'll be hearing more about the progress of that coming up in 25 as well. It's planned to start in the spring of 25, getting laid down areas and so forth, but the project completion will happen in 2028. And then on the transmission side, Propel, obviously, Long Island Offshore Wind PDN was awarded in 23 to a joint development partners in NYPA and New York Transco. That's 90 miles of 345 kV underground transmission. So a significant asset base that we're going to be undertaking, not only to support the construction, but potentially have some compliance and maintenance obligations on the other side of that. Article 7 has been submitted and certificate to participate in November, and public outreach continues on that as well. And that's going to include a number of assets that you're familiar with, but transformers, transmission lines, underground cables, terrestrial cables. So all the cable designs are going to be 90% by June. You'll start to see some progress and some announcements about that going forward. And then Stewart Avenue, Uniondale Hub Substation. Some people might know that more familiarly in the past as East Garden City. There was a name change for some local reasons for the fairness of the communities that are involved in that area. It's a 345 kV substation that's outlined in Propel Alternative Solution number 5. And that was selected by the New York ISO in June of 23. And to satisfy the Long Island offshore wind export to public policy need. And the development agreement with New York ISO was signed in May of this year. And NYPA is currently in the process of gathering documentation for the requested New York ISO to execute the modification requested. So land transactions, discussions with LIPA and PSEG are ongoing. And we have an advisory milestone to delivery date to complete that land acquisition activities in of June of 25. The new challenge there for us in this land transaction is that LIPA has some need for some of the infrastructure work that they're doing for the same real estate. So this is actually causing us to do some redesign. It's actually going to probably have some expense associated with splitting that real estate because there's just really no place on Long Island to do some of this work. So we have to go to a different technology to take care of that.
I remember talking about that in finance a
Yeah.
while ago. Yep.
And it's been
Then Brockport were.
Brockport's on track. There's
Brockport fun. Heavy score, touchdown.
Bridge connects SUNY Brockport campus over the canal to the Erie Canalway. Construction began in 23 and the steel signing was in August of this year. And it's going to be ongoing and hopefully with anticipated completion of Q2 of the next year. And a ribbon cutting celebration will be scheduled. And
hopefully and ongoing. There's not a lot of certainty in those words, but okay.
Yeah. So there's the weather conditions, whatever, there's different things there. So I think the next slide is we're going to make an attempt at a video here.
Is anything that, as you reflect on the year, oftentimes we highlight the wins and the good news. Is there any major misses that, as you look back?
Not major. I think that the trend in safety, and I know it's a difficult one at a strategic level to talk about, is probably the biggest thing on my mind for this year. When you look at the execution of the projects that we have done, we've hit most major milestones on the projects, and our budget, which we'll be talking about in January, just where we came in at the end of the year, is probably as close as it's ever been, especially our capital, which was a record spend for us. So we're literally within 2 or 3% in every category of O&M and capital from a budget execution standpoint this year. So, so no major alarms this year.
Any questions for Joe? All right, thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well done to you and the
All right,
team.
Joe.
I know you've got Henry, who's in a tight window here. We're trying to
Yes.
squeeze him in. Is Henry available?
I believe he is.
Yeah.
I don't see him yet, but he's there somewhere.
Here's Henry.
I'll let you pick it
Oh,
up,
good, good.
Justin.
Yes, well, thank you, Chairman. We're pleased to have with us today Henry Garrido. Henry's the Executive Director of District Council 37, which is New York City's largest municipal employees union with over 125,000 members and 50,000 retirees. And I want to thank Henry for being with us, first of all, and also thank him for introducing us to our guest speaker later on this morning, the Renaissance Technical Institute. Henry has been involved extensively with the Institute and brought me down to it last year, introduced me to several of the students who we spoke to on a very chilly morning in East Harlem. And I remember vividly that experience, and it's borne fruit in the sense that RTI has now been a recipient of some of our workforce housing money that we distributed under the $25 million authorization last year. So just wanted to turn it over to Henry to maybe say a few words. And then unfortunately, we're not going to be hearing from the Institute until later on in the presentation. And I know you have to run, but just wanted to give you an opportunity while you're available to chime in.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am currently in Washington, D.C., dealing with some transition, as you can imagine, after the results of the election, and then going through some of the end of the year reporting. Just a friendly amendment to Justin's introduction. We now 150,000 members and 100,000 retirees. We're actually growing, and we're very proud of that. I want to thank you for the opportunity. You know, we have a big challenge in New York, which is how do we connect people in the community to jobs? And I know that sounds pretty like not as difficult as it should be, but in fact it is. In fact, I know that I sit on the city, in addition to being on the head of the union, I sit on the city's workforce investment board. And what we find quite often is that it's hard to connect people to jobs. And there are various challenges. Obviously, wages is a challenge. The ability to access childcare is a challenge. Right now, remote work has become a challenge. But for many of the people in the community, getting the skills necessary to be able to be onboarded and to perform those jobs is critical. And I think we're at a pivotal point in the city of New York where we are going to implement Local Law 97, which requires a major reduction of emissions, that we're going to implement a number of issues. We have a serious need for healthcare workers. I know for the city of New York, we have over 22,000 vacancies right now. A lot of those vacancies are not being fulfilled, and we need to connect the people in the community to those jobs. So I'm very proud of the work Justin and I did. We invited the Commissioner of Labor, Roberta Reardon, who came with us. We invited others who have come to see the Institute. We see the Institute as a shining example of the kind of workforce development we should be doing to connect NYCHA residents, to connect young students who are undercredited, who otherwise will be, at risk, and to connect them to a program that has not only training, but a training connected to a job at the end of that tunnel. So we're very proud of the work that we've done with Renaissance. It is now currently in Harlem, but we're looking to expand with a new site in Jamaica houses, and then later on Segwood houses. We've gotten allocations from the State Assembly. And then later on, we're looking to also put a program in Staten Island. So we're excited about it, excited the work that they do, not just with migrants, not just with students, but certainly with NYCHA residents. I happen to have the distinction of covering the majority of NYCHA residents, not just because my members provide the services there, but because I have the largest number of NYCHA residents of any other union. Our members, as you probably know, have a residency requirement. They're required to live within the 5 boroughs. So it's very important that we connect programs. And so the work that we've done with Justin and the Renaissance Training Institute is really important. And so I want to thank him for it, thanking for his the opportunity. Also, David Giraldo, who's you're going to hear from later, has been also a shining example for the community. We're very proud to support this program, to continue to connect it to the jobs that the city needs and that the private sector needs. And with that, I think I will be respectful of your time, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to connect, not just as the leader of the union, but also as a client. As many of you know, that we are residing in New York, and we're very proud of the friendship and the partnership with Justin and myself and David as we move forward with this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Louis, did you have a question?
Not a question. I just wanted to say that, of all the tremendous work that NYPA does, transmission, generation, downstream, wholesale power to all the development, economic development work. This is the work that you guys are doing and leading with Renaissance is really tremendous. When you go into these big house, and Henry knows this, these big housing complexes and NYCHA complexes, you have to bring the opportunities and the training deep in the communities and these, so programs like this that are at the, almost at the neighborhood level are critically important. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're
Thank
incredibly proud of what we're doing, and if there's a go big aspiration, is clearly in this arena to really have impact, drive sustainable impact, life-changing impact, generational impact, because that's what's needed. And Henry, appreciate all the great work you do each and every day, and thank you very much for this introduction, which has been mutually beneficial or collectively beneficial. So, and good luck navigating the halls of Washington, and hopefully your time there is productive and beneficial.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we need to protect the city as best as we can, and we're trying to do just that here in DC. But thank you all for your support.
Thank you for carving some time out for us.
Thanks, Henry.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. Happy holidays.
Likewise.
Safe travels
Take
back.
care. Bye.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Well, as Justin and Henry alluded, we'll hear later in our day from David and all the rest of that, more about RTI, obviously tremendously impactful organization, and kudos for the follow-up and the follow-through, and great evidence of the network of supporters that we have. All right. Look where we are in the year, looking back, looking forward, a little more of a look back. Adam, you're up to debrief us on where we find ourselves financially, operationally. The house is in strong order. You're going to reassure us the same financially.
Yes, I'm happy to report that we still remain very much on the schedule we set out. Talking about the last few meetings. Next slide. So this is through October, and you can see that we are, certainly ahead of the target that was set at the beginning of the year, and we've continued to maintain that since we updated you probably in the spring that we expected to be above target. So we've kind of tracked to that revised target, if you will. Everything remains the same in terms of generation revenues ahead. We have added more generation than initially projected. We've also benefited, even though prices have gone down. The hedges that we have been favorable, settled favorably, so it gave us another boost there. And on the transmission side, also revenues ahead because of some of the things we were able to accomplish with the FERC 205 filing, as we mentioned earlier in the year, doing regarding cost allocation methodologies and other things in terms of how more efficiently and optimally we recoup our costs for our investments in transmission. Expenses are pretty much running in line with budget, very few variances there as a whole, and a percentage, very small percentage. Some of that we spoke about early in the morning, an audit as a result of the new GASB pronouncement 101 around the compensated absences. That was one large variance that we had not earlier been able to forecast before the year, as well as some emerging expenses at some of our sites. Next slide, please. So as we look to the end of the year projection, we are still expecting to be around this 165 number. If anything, we might go slightly higher. This only has through October. We recently closed November. November was pretty much on budget, which was a $14 million net income projection. So where we sit today, we're probably at 150, 154 on that 165. So as long as we have a December that's not too crazy, we'll probably either meet this target or go slightly above it. So we're in very good shape as far as that goes. Any questions regarding any of this?
So no surprises, we're
No.
trending, tracking, and in connection with starting 25, we're in it's a good spot.
Yep, we're in a good
Jump-
spot.
Jump forward there relative to what you're planned and anticipated. Okay,
Yep.
great.
And then next slide,
Super.
as we've been doing these updates, you know, a little bit of a look back in terms of what was accomplished this year and how that helps us towards looking towards next year. Obviously, a big achievement for us was receiving an upgrade in our credit rating from AA to AA+ by 2 different rating agencies. It was a very good report card and a good sign in terms of how being perceived by the rating agency as well as investor community. So, you know, that was a good reflection on the entire organization. We also did I'd say it's an overall restructuring, but it came in a couple different legs. So we did the defeasance where we took out some of our highest cost taxable debt that was cost around 6%. And we were able to take that out and then issue new bonds at a very low interest rate of 3.5%, actually 3.2 when you consider some of the interest earnings, the arbitrage that will occur as we earn money until we spend down the proceeds of the bond. So that is all. And plus, we've restructured our payment schedules going out so it more aligns with our, you know, assets and liabilities. So we match those better over time. So that altogether gives us a little more capacity for capital so that we can accomplish all those things we put in our capital budget this year. So this is going to help make that happen to create that additional capacity. Our investment portfolio, we've exceeded not only our budget, but other peer benchmarks, especially in that OPEB trust that we manage, which has, you know, it's more of a pension fund type of investment where we have equities, fixed income, private equity, things of that nature. So that has performed extremely well for us and makes sure that we have sufficient resources to pay for our long-term health costs for retirees. And we also did the FERC 205 filing I mentioned previously, which was very successful. And we also initiated a filing on our return on equity calculations so that we can be a little bit more in line with some of our peers. And that will also give us a benefit going forward. So that has been initiated. We hope that will be resolved during the year next year. And we also are initiating, which you'll hear later in discussion, the hydro rate case adjustments that will be needed. And, you know, we're starting that process throughout this whole year. There's been a lot of discussion, communication, but formally establishing the notice of proposed rulemaking, you know, later in this meeting, and we'll kick that off, and that'll take us all the way through towards next, say, June, before that's finished. On the business digital readiness side, done a lot of work, you know, partnering with Rob Piatzik and his people, Karina and her people, to, as we talked about, this new ERP solution that will have, you know, both a finance piece, a human capital management piece. It'll be a significant project over the next few years. But before we did that project, we did a lot of readiness, which was to take a look at our existing architecture, our existing environment, and how do we re-engineer our processes and get ourselves in position so that we can move into a new system as easily as we can without requiring any kind of customization and other things that have, you know, caused projects to become problematic over time. So we're really trying to avoid any of these problems that come with big projects, but it is going to be a significant project and a significant effort through the entire organization. And that'll be happening, you know, in earnest next year. We've implemented this Procore technology throughout the organization. So we have a standardized technology to capital construction management that has also been rolled out. And as well as we've, you know, digitized and automated some of our forecasting process that's gone into this year's financial plan. This year's financial plan was done with FP&A being on an automated program rather than a manual ones for the first time as a major accomplishment. We also put in a DocuSign process to make sure that all the approvals that go internally all the way through the board can be done seamlessly through through the DocuSign process. So it makes everything run smoother and makes things, you know, I'll take cradle to grave from when these contracts get initiated all the way up to board approvals. That's a seamless process. So that's another big accomplishment. You also heard this morning at the audit committee progress made on audit findings and the resolution of those. We have an internal business controls group. It's headed by Dolly Janvet. They've done a terrific job partnering with all the business units, helping them resolve open audit issues, prepare for future audits, look at some of those emerging trends that we were talking about earlier to try to get ahead of those. So that's been very collaborative with the business group. So we see the success that we've seen in that audit report this morning, that we're making good headway on resolving audit findings as quickly as possible. We also expanded the captive insurance so that we were able to get $500 million of terrorist risk insurance, as well as increase our insurance related to cybersecurity. So those are two major big achievements this year, the captive insurance, and we continue to expand ways in which we can utilize that captive, not only for us, but for our partners. So for example, we're going to look at owner-controlled insurance program next year. And what does that mean? Instead of requiring all of our contractors to bring insurance, we will provide that insurance for them and hopefully do that at a reduced cost. But what it also does is, as part of our supplier diversity program, remove a major barrier to some of the MWBE and smaller businesses from participating in our procurements, because they've identified insurance and their ability to get insurance at a reasonable cost to be a barrier to participate in our RFPs. So as we do that, I think that'll be open up the door for more participation there. So looking forward for that. And obviously, we spoke a lot today about the expanded authority and building out the renewables. We've helped work with Laurie and her team to put together a subsidiary to get that up and ready, as well as the new entity we created at the Empire State Development Corp for the prepaid transaction that we're looking at getting done by hopefully early Q1 next year. So all that seems to be moving very well and position us very well to start once the plan has been approved, that we can hit the ground running and execute on projects. So there's just a lot of accomplishments from our group trying to, work together with the rest of the organization to, be there as their trusted advisor partner to enable the business and the strategic plan to move forward. Next, on the theme of the supplier diversity front and SSM, a lot of accomplishments this year in terms of their spend, $137 million. I don't know if it's the first time, but certainly I think what's important to note is that spend has been, majority of that has been for prime contractor opportunities rather than just handing out a sub relationship. They've actually been a prime contractor. So that's really where we want to see the program evolve to, so that these MWB firms are getting opportunities to be a prime on a lot of our projects. So that was a good sign to see that. Our plan is to continue to grow that spend by 5% each year over the next 4 years. And these programs that we've been having to train and work with companies so that they can be positioned to better participate in our RFPs has also been very successful. You see the numbers there, as well as the number of awards that have resulted from all that training. So not only has it been training, but also outcomes and success associated with that. You also heard when we talked about the canals, our work with SSM, helping to make that canals accessibility program actually come into being and being able to be successful. So a lot of good kudos to the SSM group. John Canal and his team done a terrific job.
What are the key drivers, John? Why are we seeing that kind of progress? I mean, are we at a little bit of a tipping point? Are we breaking through some of the investments and efforts that have been made over the last few years? I'm curious as to.
I think a lot of it is we've changed our philosophy from focusing on just the percentage and looking at the dollar. So a lot of times in the past, we would, shy away from, accepting goals because they wouldn't hit our 30% mark. So scrap that idea. A dollar is worth a dollar in the supplier diversity world. And that's
great.
Kind of the philosophy we developed that.
Great.
Also, the commitment to removing one of the major barriers, right?
Yes.
Which was the insurance, the cost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Clarify that. Just
The
so
insurance cost, like they just couldn't afford.
Yeah.
it,
Right. So we're talking about,
bonded.
right. So
Yeah.
try to get the OSIP in place so that more people can participate so that they don't have to bring and get their own insurance. That it's not even, I mean, it's a cost, but it sometimes is not even attainable by
Yeah, it's a
them.
barrier to entry. no
Right,
question.
so
Totally.
removing that barrier should be a major boost in the future.
And kudos.
Yes.
Yeah, kudos all the way around.
All right, any other questions?
Anything at all for Justin, yeah, Adam on all of that? All right, we've covered a lot in finance committee a couple weeks ago, so I know it's a bit of old news for everybody, but okay.
Yep, and then we'll move to the.
Got a couple things that we need
to
motions on.
approve. Yes.
So the budget and,
Right, so we spoke about the, at the finance committee meeting, the preliminary budget. We did, just remind people, about how we're allocating our resources across our strategic priorities and pillars. There weren't that many modifications to the budget since then. Although this morning we did hear that we might have to lower the budget by 500,000 for the audit department, but we'll put a marker there.
Allocate those resources.
Might be able to get it in under the wire. But no, we had a few adjustments. We had to adjust some of our capital projects that have been reassessed and readjusted between time we presented it and now. One of them is, we spoke earlier about Smart Path Connect. We added some additional money there based on some unforeseen circumstances that have come up during the project. So we made sure we have enough there for what we think we're going to need. And all that, is obviously recoverable, and it's allowed in the way the projects are structured so that you are not held for things that are beyond your control. But we want to make sure we have enough money to get that project completed. Next slide. Again, just a reminder on the capital budget, very significant, going over $1 billion and over $900 million over the next few years. One of our biggest capital budgets we've ever had. So it's a significant work that's being done there. It's even things there that aren't even on this slide, because when we look at things like the Stewart Uniondale project or Propel, a lot of that money is coming in later, sort of in 27, 28, but all the way through 2030. So when a bulk of that money will be spent. So we have a lot even behind this, but significant investment going forward in both the transmission space, our assets, our major projects like Next Gen Niagara, our customer solutions, the EV charging that Justin talked about, the MTA is significant, going to be a significant customer of ours in terms of us providing them with that EV infrastructure. Those will be very big projects, over 600 million to date, and could be even more if there's a phase 3. So we're very excited about the work there. So just a lot of opportunities to make investments, and so it's not just talking about the renewables in terms of all the things we're trying to do. Obviously, we're going to do as much as we can there, but these projects are also essential to the state hitting its goals, whether it be at the customer side or putting in the transmission that's going to be necessary to enable the renewables to move throughout the state. So I'll say it, we said it a million different times, there's no transition without transmission. So we want to make sure that people understand that, just building renewables by itself isn't enough. You have to have the grid, you have to have the foundation to make sure that it moves in a cost-effective way. And that's the investments that we're making as well. So significant progress there, and we have an aggressive plan. Next slide. Again, just reminder on the 4-year lookout. The major point here is that net income grows year over year, mostly driven by those investments in transmission are resulting in good returns for us. Expenses are growing within the rate of inflation, except for some non-recurring items or new costs with new businesses. But in general, the revenues are growing at a greater pace than the expenses, so allows us to continue to have more, I would say, cash flow that will be used to pay for that. $4 billion worth of capital investments is going to be funded mainly through the generation of this additional cash along with financing. Next. On the O&M budget, same thing. The Canals Corp is pretty flat. They have some savings that offset their increases, so they end up coming really flat year to year. which is, it's a good thing. Allows more money to go into the critical infrastructure, and the NYPA costs are going up modestly as well. So that's the O&M budget for NYPA and the canals. And next. And
So
then
with the
just,
benefit of that recap, can we get our motion to approve?
yeah, so the next slide is really what we're approving, is to really approve the O&M budget for 2025, the capital budget, the energy services budget for for CES and Joe's group, and the separately financed projects are transmission projects. Their O&M has to be separately approved as well, as is the canals O&M and capital budget. So that's what we are asking you to approve, as well as the posting and distribution of the plan as required in the statute.
So can I have a motion?
So moved.
Dennis, thank you. Second,
Second.
thank a lot, B. Can we get good dialogue around all this and finance, running dialogue again the other, a couple of weeks ago? So unless there's any other questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Well done. Adam, thank you for the recap and
Thanks.
summation, and kudos to you and the team for another very strong and effective year.
Thank you.
Well
And
done.
we'll relate to the staff as well. Yeah, and a good cooperation from the entire organization, really making this a priority and understanding how important it is that we meet all these targets so that we can do all the things that have to be done. The next item, I think we're going to bring up Eric Bauer from Joe's group on the customer side to talk about the hydro preference rate notice of proposed rulemaking. Just to, to set the stage there, this is, we're required by statute to recover our costs. And those costs sometimes, accumulate over time. So we don't do it every single year until we reach a certain threshold. So there's a part of this that has to recover the amounts that were under collected for those years and then adjust the rates to where the costs are. So this is really the start of the formal process, but it should be noted that there's been extensive engagement with all the customers and affected groups leading up to even this point. With that, I'll ask Eric to come up, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, Chairman, trustees, NYPA leadership, staff, and members of the public. This item is to request that the board authorize the filing of a notice of proposed rulemaking, or a NOPR, related to the increase in rates for NYPA's preference power rate customers, and that you further authorize that the NOPR be filed publicly in the New York State Register to initiate a 60-day public comment period through the State Administrative Procedure Act. Now to provide some context, NYPA's preference power rate customers receive hydropower from both St. Lawrence and Niagara facilities and are statutorily required to receive that power at a cost-based rate. The customer group includes 51 municipal and rural electric cooperative systems, which comprise the largest share of the preference power customers from a power allocation perspective. It also includes 7 neighboring states, 7 Niagara host communities, Tuscarora Nation, 2 transportation authorities, and 3 investor-owned utilities. The last time that these customers saw a rate change was 10 years ago, and that was a result of a rate case that ended in a 4-year rate phase-in plan, which included rate increases from 2011 through 2014. Since then, NYPA has been able to responsibly manage its costs related to the facilities, and we've been able to maintain what we believe to be the lowest rates, electricity rates in the nation. With the undertaking of Next Gen Niagara project, along with a decade of general cost increases, we now find ourselves at a cumulative under recovery of more than $25 million in costs, which is a trigger point for NYPA to initiate a new rate increase. Although this is the first time we're bringing this to you publicly, as Adam mentioned, I want you to know that there has already been significant outreach and discussions with the preference customers. Before the start of the Next Gen Niagara project, we let our customers know that this major capital improvement plan was a necessary initiative to ensure the continued operation of the plant and that it would be resulting in a rate case in the future.
In addition, on an annual basis, we have been informing our customers of the increases in all other costs associated with the plants. Then at the beginning of 2024, we kicked off a formal process that included all preference customers where we presented the current state of our cost of service, our forward projections, and how we see a rate increase moving forward. We have shared all of our financial models with the customers. We've held technical conferences with them to walk them through how the models work and our underlying assumptions. And we've spent the last several months answering any and all questions that the customers have had on how we arrived at those numbers. We've modeled a proposed rate change consistent with our last, which is a 4-year rate phase-in of increases to do our best to lessen the rate impacts on ratepayers while still being mindful that NYPA must recover its cost. Even after the rate increases that are depicted up on the screen occur, our projections show that the preference power rates will still be competitive statewide. Current projections show that the market rates will still be above about $40 per megawatt hour through 2028. To provide further context for an average residential customer of a muni and co-op, it would translate to a $3 per month increase on their bill each year, which has a bill of an average of $38 per month. And for a residential customer of investor-owned utility, it's a $16 per month increase each year on a bill of roughly $65 per month. When fully phased in, the rate will settle at $24.26 per megawatt hour. And at that point, NYPA would have recovered a historical under collection of costs. An average monthly bill of a muni and co-op customer, residential customer, would increase by about $1.40 per year and $7.60 per year for a residential customer of an investor-owned utility. With that, I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
You threw a lot of numbers at us. Big picture, clarify, so all-in rate effectively doubling over the next 5 years?
When fully phased in after 5 years, it's effectively doubling.
Doubles.
Yeah.
But the impact to customers is what? Give me that again.
So we did 2 different scenarios. The first number I threw at you was looking at the larger increases of the first 40 years. So those would equate to about $3 for a muni customer per month each year. And for a utility customer, it's about $16 per month per year.
16 per month.
Yes.
So that's $200 a year.
Mm-hmm.
200 relative to what?
The average utility bill, I think we said, was about $65.
$65, $70, so better part of $1,000. So it's a 20% increase there. And it's all cost recovery driven.
Yes.
So, okay.
It's Next Gen Niagara, it's A&G, it's
It's
O&M.
Then it goes down.
Yeah, after
Yes.
the
And
costs
then
get recovered, then it
this-
goes back to, it goes down from there.
Well, but I'm looking at the all-in at the end. That's all I'm trying to get at. What the run rate impact is.
The second number I gave you was $1.40 and $7.60. So that's the average of the full 5 years. So when we get to that 5-year where the rate does come down, it's a less of an impact when looked at over the full 5 years. So that was $1.40 per month and $7.60 per month for a muni and a IOU customer.
That's what I'm saying. You're throwing a lot of numbers at it. So I'm a customer. I'm just trying to understand what's the impact to me. So skip all the numbers. What does it mean to me? How much am I going to be impacted? We're always sensitive to that. So I just want to make sure I understand.
Yep, understood. At the end of the day, after the fully phased in rate of 24.26, we're looking at $1.40 per month for a muni co-op customer and $7.60 per month for a IOU customer, an investor-owned utility.
Okay. All right. So $15 a year for residential and $100 a year for a muni.
Yeah. For IOU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Business.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know we went through this in the budget process and all the rest of that. Questions, comments, Laurie?
Yeah, so, I want to thank NYPA staff. Obviously, this is going to be an issue that's very sensitive to me personally. I'm here as Laurie Wheelock, but this is something I deal with every single day professionally. So I think just, again, regular updates are tremendously, needed. I understand there'll be a public comment period. What is the acronym for this? Nope.
The NOPR,
The NOPR.
Notice of Proposed Rulemaking.
Always a new acronym. So there we go. And I think the public comment period, I think, again, will be something I personally am very interested in and would love regular communication update with. I thank all the teams for that outreach, going and speaking with the preference customers leading up to this point. I think that's extremely important. And then I think just, something that I say on a daily basis at times like this is just that forward thinking. Once a rate increase is done, even though that might be coming several months from now, I think just regular communication to make sure people are doing okay is extremely important. We can always learn from those experiences, evaluate moving forward, and again, just making sure our customers are okay. So I thank you for the sensitivity. I'm probably going to ask a lot more questions in the future, which
Understood.
I appreciate those answers too. And then just the regular updates are appreciated.
And just to share, we are planning to, so you mentioned the public comment period,
Yeah.
that looks to be going to be open around the 24th of December.
Okay.
It's going to run through February 23rd. And we are also planning to proactively hold two public forum sessions, one in Western New York and one in Albany, to further speak to the public about this process.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, I think all of us are just realizing too with those dates, holidays and whatnot. So public comment period kind of gets smushed at this time of year. But again, really appreciate that. And I'll try to attend at least one, if not all.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Eric? Can I have a motion to support moving the process forward?
So moved.
Dennis, thank you. Second, thanks. Lewis, anything else? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right,
Thank
thanks. Eric,
Thank
well
you very
done
much.
pinch hitting for Maribel, who was gonna pinch hit for Scott, who was Adam, who was pinch hitting for somebody, I don't know. Okay, not pinch hitting for anybody is Alexis, risk and resilience.
Been working my way up from the back, getting the extra steps in this day. Good afternoon, trustees, colleagues, and members of the public. Today, I will give you an overview of some of the key accomplishments across risk, resiliency, and sustainability work over the past year and reveal an exciting new addition to our risk program. So with that, I'm actually going to work this slide backwards from the right over to the left, keep you all on your toes. It's been a long morning. If we start with sustainability, we're progressing on all the lead by example programs underneath Executive Order 22. As a memory jogger, that covers span of activities related to sustainability, covering buildings, fleet, waste, procurement, and biodiversity. As you all know, we did publish our second integrated report this summer, very well received, and we've been able to share that around with other brother and sister utilities across the US, not just across the state. And we have also begun projects and work that are related to better understanding our opportunities for climate resilience, including a deeper dive study on Great Lakes water levels over the long term, which will feed into some additional analysis that we'll bring into the forward year. We look at the broader topic of resilience. We actually held our first ever annual resiliency forum that covered both NYPA and canals. And in addition, we completed an assessment of our emerging risk program and identified some good next steps to help us increase that maturity. And that is serving as a big component of our upgraded Vision 2030 pillar around resiliency. Our market and credit risk management team continues to serve our middle office function and is overseeing governance related to our portfolio for our market risk management activities led by our ERM organization. And they've also expanded their monitoring and reporting of external credit markets and our counterparty exposures. They also oversee the management of our posted collateral on behalf of NYPA. Moving on now to enterprise and operational risk. Oh, don't switch the slide yet. Okay, no, almost there, I promise, almost there. This is the first year that we actually completed 2 enterprise-wide risk assessments across NYPA and canals. We thought that increased frequency would give us better insights and allow us to make sure that our risk information wasn't becoming too stale over the course of the year. It's still quite an undertaking for the business, but we've been partnering with them very closely to provide support through that assessment. We've just completed the refresh of our risk appetite statement for NYPA that is aligned with our Vision 2030 refresh activities. We'll be presenting that to you next month in January. We're looking forward to doing that. And in parallel with that, as we promised, we've also developed a unique risk appetite statement for Canals Corporation, considering that it is a different business entity. Finally, I'll talk about the fact that we have also developed a new risk liaison program. We're really excited to share that we will be rolling that out next year. If you will recall, back in February, we presented the results of our external risk maturity assessment. And while overall we have really high scores, our lowest scoring area was given the fact that we did not have a formal risk liaison network throughout NYPA and canals. Now, we didn't want to just check the box for the sake of a maturity score. So we took a different approach, and instead we partnered with HR to thoughtfully design a program that will not only help us to enhance our risk maturity at the business unit level across NYPA and canals, but will also serve as a new professional development opportunity for our team members. So with that, I would actually like to bring up Pooja Nayar, who is our Senior Director of Organizational and Talent Development, to share this broader concept and the catalyst framework under which the new risk liaison program is going to be a new component.
Thank you, Alexis. Good afternoon, Chairman, trustees, EMC members, colleagues, and members of the public. As Alexis said, my name is Pooja Nayar. I'm the Senior Director of Talent and Organizational Development, and I appreciate the opportunity today to tell you a little bit more about this Catalyst framework. It's not a singular program, but it really is an actual framework or a way for us to reframe how we think about professional development opportunities for internal employees across the organization. The name itself comes from this idea of a catalyst being something that accelerates a process or accelerates a change. And in the context of professional development, what we're looking at here is how can we empower people managers to think about developmental opportunities in a more broad way than they may traditionally have done. So the idea here is to help them to identify where there are developmental opportunities that are outside of an employee's day-to-day function and help to build those skill sets through experiential and exposure opportunities. So as we conceptualize this framework, there were some guiding principles that we considered, and I'm going to talk to you through a few of these, not everyone on the slide. We talked about the idea of grounding ourselves in future skills. So we've all heard through the conversation today how much is changing and what a state of transformation we're in as an industry. So making sure that we're grounded in that future set of capabilities. Also ensuring that when we think about professional development, we're looking at what we call the 3 E's. So this is the idea of experience, exposure, and education, and really recognizing that the experiential aspects of development tend to be what's stickiest, if you will. That's where we find the most impact when it comes to truly learning and developing. So that was a key principle that we embedded in this. Another guiding principle is to make sure that whatever we build here can be scaled and can be replicated across different processes, across different functions. And then lastly, really looking at not overcomplicating, but trying to find the opportunities in what already exists so that, to your point earlier, Chairman, we can be very intentional about how we pursue development. So on that note, I'd like to turn to some of the outcomes that we're looking to drive through this framework. The first is this notion of intentionality, then being purposeful in how we develop our employees. Also looking again at that future focus around specific capabilities. So this is where the risk liaison program is really exciting, because as we've had many conversations around people planning and talent reviews across the board, this idea of elevating the competence around how we think about risk is coming up in almost every conversation that we have. So it's really exciting to be able to really focus in on that. This also helps us to then develop those leader and expert pipelines. So we're talking here about, potential career paths, both on the leadership side and the expert, individual contributor expert side, and creating those opportunities for social learning by driving these peer networks and creating a community around these capabilities. We want to be able to provide opportunities for exposure recognizing that that's a key part, again, of building the pipelines, and then driving transparency and resilience across the organization through all of this. So what do these catalyst programs even look like? If we go to the next slide, there is a vast landscape around these, and these can vary based on the intensity of the program, the complexity of the design, and what the personas or the aspirations of the employees that play into this. So for instance, when it comes to the intensity, we might just look at broadening the lens for an employee. So you may have an employee who's interested in a different function. You just want to understand, explore it a little bit more. You could have the two managers work together to create what we call a day in the life. So almost a bit of a job shadowing, doesn't have to be robust and extensive, but can be very much of a once a week over the course of 6 weeks. They're sitting next to a colleague and learning a little bit, dipping their toe in the water around this that function. On the flip side, you could have something much more immersive, which is the more traditional kind of rotational programs that often get touted as the key kind of way that you build these experiential opportunities, but doesn't have to be the be all and end all of development. There's also the idea of the complexity of the program. So we want to look at being able to reframe what opportunities already exist. We have a very robust set of employee resource groups, for instance. There's an opportunity for someone who might want to explore being a people manager to be able to take on a leadership role on one of these ERGs. That gives them a taste of what people management looks like, gives them a sense of how to engage with stakeholders across the board, and is a really easy, low-lift way for someone to get that sort of developmental opportunity. On the flip side, you can have something that is much more robust and has more design needs, like the risk liaison program that we're building, and you'll hear about in a minute. The different personas also come into play here because we talked about the pre-managers, someone interested in learning about people management. There's the opportunity with the ERGs I mentioned, but you could also have them be a manager to a developmental intern or a mentor to one of our PTech interns, and again, starting to build those capabilities. Within a function, you could create what I like to call like a responsibility shuffle. You may have a manager who has a couple of folks managing different processes. They could mix it up so the individuals now are involved with processes they're not traditionally managing, and that helps to, again, build that exposure. And then cross-functionally, we're seeing this liaison or champion model emerging. So not just the risk liaison program that we're talking about, but you've heard Daniela talk about the innovation champions. We know that the audit team has had a long-standing guest auditor program. So that sort of model of that cross-functional exposure is also something that we're really seeing. So as you can see, there's a vast array of these types of catalyst programs and many different ways that we can conceptualize this. What we're really trying to do is empower managers and empower the business to drive this forward and really think about this in a way that does not overcomplicate it and takes away some of that intimidation around it. I think a lot of people managers don't quite know how to develop their people, and it often feels like this thing that has to be really complicated. So what we're trying to do through this is almost create a bit of a menu to say it can be really, really easy or it can be much more complex. There's a wide range that you can leverage for that. So with that, that's kind of
What's been the response?
So we're rolling out the risk liaison program. The ERG piece is already sort of something that we recommend to people. Because it is so large, there's an array of it. But typically when we've talked to people, they're liking this because it's sort of demystifying this idea of development a little bit, and it's just making it feel a lot more easy to do. So it seems to be a positive response.
Okay, great.
Curious your thoughts. Thank you.
Have we brought our union members to the table to talk about their options?
At this, not quite at this point. We've started some of the conversations with our, like the colleagues around this.
Okay.
So that's something that we're looking to how we can broaden that for the next year. So.
And on that point, the union have their program for the internal development for the, to get to Journey.
Right.
So they have their own.
Talk with Catalyst program with that program and see if there's any
Yeah,
collaboration.
We'll
or
work towards
cooperation.
that as we build this out. This is a
Okay.
new platform for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turning back to it.
And building further on Pooja's answer to your question, Chairman, is the looking at something like a framework such as Catalyst, and then figuring out where like the next developmental need that we had was, or the next potential gap that we wanted to fill, such as for like the risk acumen. We're able to put that in a context that we can explain to the employees when they are looking at that menu of choices. Here's where it fits in. in with all these other options. Is this the right thing for you? Do you want to apply? Because yes, we're going to make it an application process for which we'll work with HR to have a selection. Another, I think, helpful piece of perspective to share is that the risk liaison program is going to fit in this sweet spot where we don't have a current offering that is not as like low impact as the job shuffle, the responsibility shuffling that Pooja just talked about, nor is it a big break and step away like you might see in a traditional rotation program where somebody like steps out of their business unit for a while to work on a project. This is something that is a little bit in between that. So with that, key features of the risk liaison program are that it will actually have structured training. There will be a development plan, and it's going to have a combination of both practical application, but also some focus on soft skills development as well. Again, we're seeing this as sort of early or emergent leaders who would go through this process. There is opportunity to engage with other liaisons in the program, and that's to, first of all, help them give them more exposure and a bigger picture view of NYPA and canals. And then also, I know I've personally talked a lot about the interconnectedness of things, especially in the risk and resiliency space. So it's eye-opening to us to see if we can make some connections to see like how or where we're aligning our risk mitigation activities, or where we need maybe a greater level of awareness because we're seeing some more cascading impacts that we weren't aware of before. So it is a two-way street. There will be interaction opportunities for the liaisons to get some time and attention from more senior leaders in the organization, including an opportunity to present to the Executive Risk Committee, which is what meets before we meet with our Risk and Resiliency Trustee Committee. And we're also foreseeing that there's a potential for the risk liaisons to interact within the risk work streams that exist within APPA and LPPC. So a little bit of an exposure, external opportunity for them as well, which we think is unique. We don't always have opportunities to do that. If we go on to the next slide, this program is a marathon, not a sprint. And so it will go through 3 phases for the participants lasting about 2 years. That is to make sure that there's time allowed for them to actually build some acumen, to get those exposure opportunities and build a little bit of a rapport within their network and within, again, a wider range of leaders for the corporation. Quite simply, phase 1 is just about establishing a baseline for them. Phase 2 is going to be applying some of the new skills and the acumen that they developed through phase 1, bringing that a little bit forward and broadening their understanding again of NYPA and canals. And then finally, phase 3 is more of like the showcasing phase, and where we're actually expecting to start to see a little bit higher level of maturity within the business units because of the interaction of these liaisons with both the core risk team and then again with wider leadership throughout. And again, just reiterating that the whole point of this is to both increase risk acumen at the authority, which helps us to increase resilience, while also fostering this career development opportunity for some of our rising stars. Final note, I knew I was going to forget something. I keep doing this. To foster sustainment after completion, these first cohorts will actually serve as mentors to the next set that will be coming through the program. Sorry. Any questions?
Oh, very good. Thank you. Exciting. Look forward to hearing outcomes and progress as we go.
Thank you.
Great.
Good.
Thanks very much, Alexis. Appreciate that. Okay, pivot. Last of our formal internal presentations anyway. We've had 3 committee meetings over the last couple of weeks. Governance and, finance and audit as recent as this morning. So governance, first up, I think B, you're going to kick us off here, right?
I believe so. So the governance committee met on October 16th, adopted minutes, received 3 staff reports, and adopted the following consent items, which are now before the board for adoption. Procurement and related reports for New York Power Authority and Canal Corporation, January to June. Approval of guidelines for procurement contracts, resolution. Approval of guidelines for disposal of personal property and expenditure authorization procedures for New York Power Authority and Canal Corporation, resolution, and annual review and approval of guidelines and procedures for the disposal and acquisition of real property and expenditure authorization procedures. May we have a motion, Mr. Chairman?
You want me to move it? I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thanks very much, B. Happy to move your report. Finance. When we meet, November 13th, so a couple of weeks ago. And we've got a couple $100 million of recommendations here for us to act on. Once again, quarterly release of funds for canals, or Joe, everyone's talked about canals, our quarterly releases. The next one up is for first quarter of next year, 27 million. We've got a 6-year contract award in connection with replacement of the St. Lawrence crane that Joe talked about earlier in his presentation, $71 million there as well. Third item is contracts for construction management, administration, and inspection services, a total of 10 firms that I know you trust me that Karen will get in the minutes. They aggregate a total of 75 million. It's the same 10 you recommended a couple weeks ago when we met. There's another 15 million personal services contracts similar to what we just referenced there for engineering support services for the Canal Corporation, a handful of firms for an aggregate of 15 million over the next 5 years. And then very notably, as we referenced a couple times over the course of the day, an additional 8 million to support clean energy workforce training initiatives, the Institute for Workforce Advancement for 975,000, almost $1 million, the United County Office of Workforce Development Training for another 820,000, Public Community Housing Fund Workforce Training Initiative for $1 million. A joint request on behalf of not only ourselves, but Department of Labor, co-brand a program with SUNY for a total of 5 million. And then the WVI Dolphin Foundation, the amount of 150. So as we talk all the time, incredibly proud and excited of our ongoing commitment there. All that aggregates, as said, plus or minus a couple $100 million. And unless there's any other questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve those recommendations from the finance.
I'll move the motion to approve all 5 items.
Thanks, Dennis. The second, Louis. Thank you very much. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved and carried. Thank you kindly. And this morning, we had an audit committee meeting, internal as well as external, if you will, with KPMG. Dennis, give us the highlights, if you would.
Okay, the audit committee met this morning, is December 10th, 2024, and adopted minutes from the March 26th, 2024 audit committee meeting. The committee also received a report from Solomon Ali on the 2024 internal audit plan update and adopted the 2025 internal audit budget at this meeting. In addition, KPMG presented their audit plan and strategy for the 2024 financial audit to the audit committee for consideration. Our report.
No motion is required. I know everyone was fully engaged 4 hours ago, so I don't know, we need to
Seems like yesterday.
revisit it. So we're coming down the stretch run.
Okay.
All right. All right, next up is our consent agenda, which I know consumed your focus and energy at some point over the weekend as you're prepared for today. Unless we have any questions or thoughts, I'd happy to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as was presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks a lot, B. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, well, we're going to close with 2 final presentations from outside the organization. First up is Renaissance Technical Institute and David Geraldo. Justin, Laurie, you want to take a minute or two? Join us right there, if you would, David. Welcome, first of all. And Henry spoke glowingly of you a bit ago, and sorry we couldn't tag team his comments with yours, but we appreciate you making and taking time to be here. and are excited the next 10, 15 minutes to have you tell us more about RTI and the great impact you're having.
Thank you so much for having me here. First, thank you every single person to be here. It's a pleasure, and thank you to Mr. Justin Driscoll for listening, and also for the support that we're receiving from NYPA.
Excuse me, is your microphone on?
Yes.
Is it? Okay, great.
My name is David Hiraldo. Before Renaissance Technical Institute, I was a special education teacher for 11 years at Harlem Children's Zone. It's a charter school in Harlem. Based on the experience that I have with my former students who couldn't complete high school for different reasons, that's why I decided to do Renaissance Technical Institute. Renaissance Technical Institute is a 501c3, a non-for-profit organization that offers free vocational training. And the only requirement that we have is one, that the student must be 17 years or older. So you may have other organizations or other trade schools that they may require high school diploma, they may require no criminal record, they may require a specific income. At Renaissance Technical Institute, we don't have those barriers. So as long as you're 17 years or older, you're more than welcome to come to Renaissance Technical Institute. We have 17 different careers that students can pick from. So our school is divided in health, like phlebotomy, EKG, HHA, nurse assistant, but we also have construction like OSHA 40, SST 10, site safety training. We have the CDL, the commercial driver's license. We have the flagger, the scaffold. We have HVAC. We have plumbing, carpentry, electricity, solar panel. So all those classes that I mentioned to you are free of charge for our students. They don't have to pay a single penny. So we have some students who can also visit us today. They are more than welcome to answer any questions for you guys. And the goal for this year, with the support that you bring into us, is to graduate 90 students in the following trades: clean energy trades like HVAC, electricity, and solar panel. So electricity, because our goal is to be part of the EV charger station that's gonna be built in the JFK airport. So, you know, electricians, that are the people who are gonna be maintaining those equipment. But we also have the solar panel program and the HVAC now with the heat pumps that the new buildings will be mandated to have. So that's the goal. Again, 90 students gonna be graduating, and with the money that you support to Renaissance, the plan is that these students, when they complete the program, they will do 3 months paid internship with companies that are already our partners. And at the end of the internship, those students can be hired by the company if they want. Okay, if they don't get hired, it's a plus because now they have 3 months of experience. It's gonna be easier for them to get another job later on. We have a waiting list right now of 17,000 students all across our 70,000 students all across our 17 careers. Every single week, we are graduating 140 people with the OSHA 40. That means OSHA 30, I'm sorry, the SST 10, the site safety training, the flagger, and the scaffold. 140 students every week we graduating for the last 8 weeks. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity. We hope that this continue. No, we want to change life. If we have to do it one by one, we will do it, but we need the support from you guys. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, thank you.
Want to play the video?
Huh?
You want to play the video?
Yeah, please. So, thank you.
Wrong video.
Seen that one. Seen those talking points. We can kill those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Renaissance Technical Institute was established, next slide, was established in 2014 as a non-for-profit organization. Our first class was in 2016. only 20 students. In 2023, we were blessed and we graduated over 2,100 students. Right now, we also working in collaboration with a new vision for charter and public school. So New Vision is a network of 71 high school in New York City. What they do is those students who are not graduating for any reason, those students who are be out of high school, they send in these students to Renaissance for them to graduate by the end of the school year in any of the trades that we offer. Next slide, please. So again, those are the programs that we are working with you together, and the 90 students will be graduating from one of these programs, HVAC, solar panel, or electrical. Next one, please. Our classes are very flexible. We have classes just on the weekends if the student want to, but we also have class on the weekdays, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., and the student can complete the classes in 6 months. The certificate that they receive from those classes, like carpentry, electricity, plumbing, and HVAC, they receive a national certificate. They can go to any state, and that certificate will be valid. Next slide, please. So that some of the students doing hands-on in our site in East Harlem. So just to let you know how Henry Garrido mentioned, so we are located on the Johnson Houses project in East Harlem, and we are planning to open 2 more centers, one in South Jamaica Houses and one in Sewick Houses. So all our school will be located on NYPA properties. And even though we have 17,000 people in our waiting list, if you are a NYPA resident, you don't have to go to the waiting list. If you are a high school student, you don't have to go to the waiting list. That's our priority right now.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Wong, and I just completed plumbing at Renaissance Institute. I'd like to thank Justin Driscoll and the NYPA for this opportunity. Thank you.
My name is Yudelki Arias, and I would like to say thank you for Mr. Driscoll and NYPA for the opportunity of my graduated on plumbing.
Thank you to Justin E. Driscoll and the NYPA for this opportunity. I would like to thank you and Renaissance Technical Institute for the plumbing certificate that you guys helped me with. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna be graduating, the goal is to graduate 90 students by the end of the fiscal year for Renaissance, that is June 30th of 2025. So now we are in the last month of graduating 65 students. So we are more than confident that we're gonna graduate more than 90 students by the end of the year, of the fiscal year. And in this cohort right now that we're graduating 65 students, 23 of these students are for NYPA, and are NYPA residents.
Fantastic.
Thank
Incredible work, and I can only applaud the commitment and the passion you bring to what you've been doing for what, no more than 10 years, so.
Yeah, well, 10 years this
10
year.
years this year. Well,
This is our
congratulations.
waiting list all across all the trades that we offer. As you can see there, most of the class, also just want to say that most of the classes that we offer, they can be taught in English or Spanish also. And
Wonderful.
we are the only, right now, we are the only institution in Manhattan that is teaching the OSHA 40 in French.
Well, great work, and we're proud to begin to partner with you and look forward to continuing that for years to come. So, yeah, let us know what more we can do to be helpful.
I just want to my students to come here so they can see them.
Yes.
Okay. So these are the students. you so much for the opportunity and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Thank you for making time and taking time to sit through our marathon of a meeting.
We find out what they learned.
For your opportunity. I'm sorry,
Can the
Cecily?
students tell us what they're doing now?
Yeah.
My name is Juanita Mathis. I'm taking electrical, one of the best programs I signed up for. It has been life-changing for me and my religious organization, which is Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Without Renaissance Technical Institute, I would be very lost because you need an electrician. You understand what I'm saying? That is a needed trade. It is a great trade. I'm glad to be taking it. I'm thankful for everything that they provide along with the flexible hours. So I'm thankful to you guys providing whatever funding, whatever you give in order to keep Renaissance Technical Institute running. May God bless you and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Winduska and I'm attending the electrical class in the RTI. I can only say that I was part of electrical in several countries and something really hands-on is needed because lots of people have the general knowledge and skills, but they don't know how to do the things. And in this point of view, RTI is a good option because they grab people in, they teach them how to do the things really with hands. And I believe in the future, I mean, a lot of that fashion with healthcare trades will have to be pushed out because there's a missing generation gap in between engineers and real people who actually can do the things. So the situation is the real people are getting murdered by the healthcare fashion and social service. And there will be people missing in the future in the coming 10, 20 years who will be able to sustain, let's say, the industry and produce new ideas and build the industry. Because all the people who knew are nowadays in pensions and are retired. The middle generation is missing and the young ones will have no one to learn from and gain the experience. So I believe there should be more places where people can do things with hands. And there should be more opportunities straight away to grab on whilst on studies, because still that part is missing. There's the practice, but the job is missing still.
I thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Wong. I currently work for New York City Department of Education, and I've been transitioning, and RTI is a part of that transition. I just got my certificate as a plumber, and this is work that I feel fulfilled when I do versus at the Department of Education. I think a lot of young men who come from my environment needs a program like this. I will hope to start a program similar to this in the future if I can. Coming from my environment, you don't really see programs that are free, that involves hands-on skills. And when I was in my 20s, I was looking for something similar to this because I know I couldn't afford to go to college and pay for something like this. And then I discovered this through a peer of mine, and this has been life-changing. I really thank Mr. David. He really has changed my life for the better. And I just can't wait to, embark on a new journey. Thank you.
Thank you again. We're all the more proud to be your partner and look forward to great outcomes from this and continuing investment with you and your team. So,
thank you so much.
All right, have a wonderful holiday.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
All right, last up, our closing presentation is from Public Power New York. As you all know, we were petitioned by them to provide us thoughts and feedback relative to the renewables plan that we put forward. They have provided us with materials prior to all this that we've all received and begun to peruse. But want to ensure Patrick Robbins had an opportunity to offer his thoughts and comments on behalf of their group. So Patrick, welcome, and we look forward in the next 10 minutes to hearing your thoughts and comments.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Robbins. I am the coordinator of the New York Energy Democracy Alliance and a co-chair of the Public Power New York Coalition. I first want to say thank you to the trustees for inviting me to speak with you all today. It's a very exciting time to be here, and so I want to thank you for that. You've all been discussing today the New York Power Authority's implementation of the Build Public Renewables Act, and I would like to add to that conversation. I'm here on behalf of the Public Power New York Coalition because we believe that the trustees, all of you here, have a history-making role to play, both for New York's electric grid and for our climate. I want you to embrace this role and treat it not as a burden, but as an enormous privilege. Many people who care about our climate have fallen into despair at the news that a climate denier will soon take office as president. The consequences of this are likely to be a repeal of the investment tax credit and the production tax credit, a halt to offshore wind development, and a full embrace of the death cult that is the fossil fuel industry. But then there's you. You sit at the helm of a public authority that is charged with the common management of New York's public electricity resources. You know that the decisions you make are much bigger than just state level. If New York were a country, it would have the 10th largest economy in the world, and we know that other states and other countries look to New York for guidance. And so by embracing a robust build out of renewable energy, you can turn this state into a beacon that can illuminate the entire world. Unfortunately, New York is not setting the example that we need to set on climate. After a bitter back and forth, we're finally bringing back congestion pricing, but with a 40% reduction in revenue. This administration has also attempted to change the way we calculate methane emissions to make it seem like we're doing better on climate than we actually are. And from what I understand, NYSERDA recently effectively canceled your own Clean Path transmission project. And so these are not the actions of an administration that understands climate change as the life and death issue that it actually is. The Public Power New York Coalition is calling on you to build 15 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity because this is what is necessary. As you well know, and as we've discussed today, New York is faced with the task of both meeting growing electricity demand and accommodating a shift toward greater reliance on electric power as the transportation fleet and our heating system both electrify over time. A study by Stratogen, which I think was circulated to the trustees, found that unless NYPA steps in, we're only going to be able to serve between 45% and 61% of demand with renewable generation. Trustee Koelmel, I appreciated your clarification that this is a much bigger task than just the 17 gigawatt demand that was presented. You know, we're looking at a responsibility to meet a major shortfall. And your own draft report asserts that we will likely only meet 40% of demand by 2030 without robust action by the New York Power Authority. And the answer to this cannot be the continuation of fracked gas power plants. First of all, there's the financial side. Methane gas prices are consistently the most important factor in the cost of electricity because they set the marginal cost in the wholesale market. And as we saw in 2021 and 2022, gas prices become agonizingly high during times of geopolitical instability. I can't imagine the next few years will become more stable geopolitically. And so I want you to think about the money that you'll save in fuel costs alone on that front. And as trustees of the New York Power Authority, you do have a responsibility to do right by the communities where your peak power plants are located. In the South Bronx, for example, 1 in 3 children suffer from asthma. And year after year, when the state assesses the health of its counties, the Bronx ranks dead last every year. That is unacceptable. It's part of a legacy of environmental racism in the state, and perpetuating that cannot be the answer to that shortfall. The exciting thing is that there are other answers. Another study, which I believe was circulated to all of you, used modeling from the Rocky Mountain Institute to demonstrate that NYPA could replace all of its fossil fuel assets entirely without damaging its credit rating and keeping its debt service coverage ratio in the range of 2 to 2.5, consistent with your own financial targets. And a recent announcement last month from the Treasury, as I'm sure you're aware, guarantees safe harbor provisions for renewable projects through 2026, ensuring further investment stability. Now is the time to be ambitious. I do want to use some of my time to recognize the outpouring of support that we've seen across the state for a more ambitious plan. We join over 5,300 New Yorkers who submitted public comments in the last 60 days. It wasn't just a few hundred, by the way. Over 5,300 New Yorkers emailed comments. And we joined tens of thousands who took action to pass the BPRA, which started this process. That I like the slide with the little speech bubbles with the demands that you heard across the state. There was the one about capacity, and if that accurately reflected how many people were making each comment, that one would be huge. If you look at the comments that were filed. And most of those 12 articles that were mentioned before about the hearing also talk about this need to build more capacity than what is in the plan currently. The AFL-CIO and the building trades of New York recognize that the best way to provide a steady and reliable stream of jobs for their members is to be as ambitious as possible, which is why they have also echoed this demand for 15 gigawatts of capacity to guarantee jobs for their members. This is even more important now at a time when the National Labor Relations Act is going to come under fire at the federal level. And over the last month, as was discussed, you held stakeholder sessions where people from all over New York turned to you for hope. I am from Kinderhook, New York, so I attended the Albany hearing, and I saw people from Schenectady, from Troy, from Watervliet drawing attention to the benefits that we could gain through greater investment in renewable projects that can train up a local workforce. In the Adirondacks, there's been massive support from the town of Indian Lake for many years to build more hydroelectric assets. In Western New York, I know that communities showed up to ask you to cite projects in historically disinvested sites in vacant industrial areas of Tonawanda, where factories have been retired and a coal-fired power plant closed in 2015. And in New York City, you had 300 people show up and demand a robust build-out in New York, particularly teachers and students whose campuses could go fully renewable by partnering with you. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about New York City. I appreciated Trustee Gonzalez's comments about the importance of geographic parity. And I think that really speaks to this. The draft plan contained only one project in New York City, just one, for the highest demand and most grid congested part of the state. We can do so much more than this. A massive investment in distributed solar paired with storage could take a major chunk out of the peak demand problem, put people to work, and create assets for you that would yield a faster return than what you might be looking at otherwise. And I believe you're already working with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services on this, which is great. And we want to encourage you to go as big on this as possible. Use your bulk purchasing power to do what other developers can't. Build projects to serve every public institution you're currently powering, and do so with the robust labor provisions that are required by law. I'll just end. I know it's been a very long morning. I'll end by acknowledging that I know what we're proposing is unusual, it's unconventional, and it doesn't fit a purely market-driven approach. But the resources that you're building belong to all of New York, and this is clearly what the people of New York want and need. The gentleman who signed your authority into law was clear on this point when he described the federal component of this vision. FDR proposed that the renewable energy resources belonging to the people of the United States must remain forever in their possession. You have a once-in-a-generation chance to become known as the people who preserved this vision into the coming century, and I hope that you will take it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your comments. As with others, we look forward to giving those full consideration in the days and weeks ahead. So thanks very much, Patrick. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Unless there's any other matters to come before us, I'll be very pleased to call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Multiple seconds, thirds, and fourths. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays overall. Happy New Year. And enjoy. Stay safe. And we'll see you the end of January.
Wow.